Chapter 176, Chapter 174, So really, was it even strange anymore? Not only Brit, but even Kiwo caught sight of the strange orange monster lurking in the passage. Both of them froze, eyes wide with shock. British, it's here again. Kiwo's trembling voice broke the silence. She had already learned the creature's nature from the chat, and an uneasy fear gripped her chest. On the surface, the orange monster only made people laugh uncontrollably. Aside from that, it seemed harmless, lacking any other obvious anomalous effect. But appearances could be deceiving. It was powerful enough to make Veil fly. That kind of strength alone was enough to make one's blood run cold. With that terrifying power, if it ever turned hostile, the result could be easily imagined. Don't panic. It might not attack, Brit murmured, eyes narrowing as he peered into the dim corridor. Besides, Veil hasn't quit the game yet, right? Things could still turn around. Though his tone sounded calm, his heart was far from steady, beating wildly in his chest. If it gets worse later, remember to put on your mask and hide for a while, Brit added, voice low but firm. Kiwo looked down at the gas mask from another world in her trembling hands, confusion clouding her face. What about you? Brit shook his head and drew out a small ring, the jade ring, a rare item recovered from the light containment area. It had miraculous effects and could even resist the plague doctor's lethal touch, but its side effects were cruel, draining the wearer's mobility until they could barely move. I'll use this, Brit said. It should help. And if it doesn't, well, there's nothing else I can do but try. He swept his gaze around them once more. Shattered concrete littered the floor, and dark, sticky residue clung to the walls. The mysterious substance had long lost its power to serve as a pocket dimension portal. Behind them, the way they came remained barely open. They still had a path to retreat. But the question wasn't whether they could retreat, it was whether they'd survive long enough to try. I'm guessing escape is impossible, Brit muttered, frowning. From the chat, he had learned the orange monster was blindingly fast, even while carrying Veil. It would probably move even faster without the extra weight. Unlike the many-winged angel from before, whose massive wings blocked every corridor, this monster's bulk didn't hinder it in the slightest. It could sprint through the passage with terrifying ease. Because of that, Brit knew running might be useless. They could only grit their teeth and face it head-on. Still, when the moment came, he knew he'd try to run anyway. Standing still and waiting for death wasn't bravery, it was stupidity. And perhaps, with a little luck, they might still find a glimmer of hope. After all, this orange creature wasn't like that shy guy that killed anyone who looked upon it. Its behavior was unknown, but maybe, just maybe, escape was still possible. Ah! Brit, I feel awful. Beside him, Kiwo's voice wavered on the edge of tears. As she stepped out of the other world, she noticed the lifeless girl sprawled beside the corridor wall. The sight made her blood run cold, her face pale as snow. Thankfully, after enduring so many terrifying in-game scenarios, her courage had grown considerably. Still frightened, yes, but not broken. Even so, in this very moment, she felt dangerously close to collapsing. I don't want to laugh anymore. I can't stop, haha. Kiwo clutched the mask tightly with both hands, her whole body trembling, the air around her thick with fear. It hasn't moved in a while, Brit whispered. Maybe we should try to slip away. She nodded weakly. Neither of them wanted to confront an unknown horror any longer than necessary. Who knew what else it could do? Once their decision was made, they began to move, slowly, cautiously, backing away from the orange creature. But then, just as they retreated, the monster lurched forward. In an instant, it was upon them. Brit and Kiwo froze, eyes wide, breath caught in their throats. Even the viewers watching the stream were overcome with panic. Damn! That scared the hell out of me. What is that thing? Why does it look like a pile of orange slugs? Hahaha, no way, it really does look like a giant snot monster. It's over. It's over. Brit and Kiwo are doomed. They'll be fine. Vale's still alive. Wait, why do I think this thing's kind of cute? The sudden charge made Brit halt immediately. He and Kiwo realized the creature had reacted to their retreat. Now, paralyzed with tension, neither dared to move a muscle. Up close, they could finally see the orange monster clearly. It was enormous, shapeless, its entire body a mass of translucent orange slime that glistened in the dim light. In a way, it did resemble a giant slug, just like the chat had joked. Yet that description still didn't do it justice. Its body was constantly shifting, rippling, reforming, radiating an eerie, unnatural beauty. It stopped just before Brit, looming silently, featureless, no eyes, no mouth, no face, only slick, writhing orange tendrils sliding across its form. They couldn't even comprehend how it moved so fast. It had no legs, no structure suited for speed. But at this point, that didn't matter. This was an SCP. They had seen too many impossible things already, statues that kill if you blink, humanoids that slaughter if seen, cursed relics that defy reason. Which one of those had ever been normal? So really, was it even strange anymore, that a slug without legs could run faster than a man? Chapter 177, Chapter 175, a SCP that represents beauty and pleasure. The air was deathly still. They could hear their own breathing, each inhale trembling like a whisper against the silence. Sweat, like tiny glass beads, slid down their foreheads. Their palms were slick, and their hearts pounded as if they wanted to leap out of their chests. Brit, what should I do? Kiwo's voice trembled as she stared into the darkness ahead, her expression pale and tight. She spoke barely above a whisper, terrified that even a single syllable might draw the attention of the orange monster lurking before them. Yet if she didn't speak, the suffocating dread might have consumed her. Brit didn't reply. His lips moved soundlessly, but no words came. His state was no better than hers, stiff, tense, and utterly bewildered. And so they stood there, two trembling figures facing a monster that seemed to breathe silence itself. Seconds dragged into minutes. Each tick of time felt like another step along the crumbling edge of an abyss. Still, a fragile thread of hope clung to their hearts. According to the chat from the viewers, Vale, the one who had been seized earlier by that strange yellow creature, was still alive. That alone meant something. The orange monster wasn't as cruel as the terrifying old man or the little peanut. At least it didn't kill on sight. If it didn't kill right away, then maybe there was still a way out. Don't panic, let's wait and see, Brit whispered, his voice steadier than he felt, trying to reassure Kiwo beside him. But before his words could fully leave his lips, he froze. His eyes widened in disbelief. Because the moment he spoke, the orange monster moved. With frightening speed, it lunged straight toward Kiwo. Several slimy tentacles lashed out, coiling around her body in an instant. The suddenness of it tore a scream from her throat, but that scream abruptly twisted into wild, uncontrollable laughter. Kiwo's laughter rang out, manic and desperate, tears streaming down her flushed cheeks. The monster's tentacles writhed under her arms, tickling her mercilessly, forcing laughter that shook her entire body. Watching this grotesque scene, Brit felt a cold unease ripple through his chest. He swallowed hard, instinctively snatching up the gas mask that Kiwo had dropped. Even through her helpless laughter, Kiwo hadn't lost her reason entirely. She fought to turn her head toward Brit, her voice choked with laughter as she shouted between gasps, "Ha, quick, haha, the mask, ha, hurry, haha." Her meaning was crystal clear, put on the mask, escape now. A flicker of hesitation crossed Brit's eyes. He didn't put the mask on right away. Instead, he stared at the orange monster, watching its every move. Because despite the chaos, something felt off. The creature wasn't attacking Kiwo. If anything, it seemed to be playing with her. And Brit wasn't the only one to notice. On the stream, the chat was going wild. Holy crap! It's happening! Tentacles, tentacles! Wait, why's it look like it's playing with her? Yet it's not hurting her. Bro, this is so messed up, but I can't look away. Even the viewers could sense it, the monster's actions weren't violent. They were disturbingly playful. Its tentacles danced with bizarre precision, as though it were playing a game, and from the rhythm of its movements, there was no doubt, it was tickling her. Yes. The orange monster was playing a tickle game. And judging by its gleeful twitching, it was absolutely enjoying itself. Its writhing body almost seemed to hum with satisfaction. Everyone, Brit murmured under his breath, perhaps this entity is different from the others. He didn't dare rush forward. Even Vale, far stronger than him, had been subdued easily by this creature. Charging in would be suicide. Still, its strange, almost harmless behavior made him hesitate. Should he really retreat? If it were only playing, maybe it wasn't dangerous. But if he entered that world, he'd have to face the humanoid horrors waiting there instead. Comparing both fates, Brit froze in anxious indecision. He even thought of running, but one glance at the creature's speed crushed that idea instantly. His hesitation, however, didn't last long. The orange monster suddenly shifted again. Its many eyes turned toward Brit. In a blur, a tentacle shot out and coiled around him. The instant it touched his skin, an overwhelming wave of euphoria crashed through his mind. He gasped and then burst into uncontrollable laughter. Now he understood. He understood why Vale and Kiwo had laughed so wildly. Because the sensation was irresistible. Ha ha ha, ha ha ha. Laughter erupted from him louder than before, echoing through the air like a mad chorus. It felt like sunlight breaking through a pitch-black storm. The world suddenly glowed with warmth and color. For a moment, it was bliss, pure, forced bliss. And deep inside, Brit realized the truth. He wasn't happy. He was being made to feel happy. This effect, this compulsion, was like nothing he had ever known. It shattered his understanding of the SCP entirely. Not all entities spread terror, some enforced joy. And that made them even more terrifying. After all, fear could be resisted. But euphoria? That stripped away reason itself. Ha ha ha, damn it, ha ha ha, I can't control it, ha ha. I'm losing it. Brit laughed and screamed at once, trapped in his own hysteria. Kiwo, though still laughing, felt her heart sink. They were both caught. And she had no idea what would happen next. Then, before she could even think further, the orange monster shifted again. Its body coiled, and with a guttural sound, it enveloped both of them completely, swallowing them whole before darting back into the shadows. Chapter 178, Chapter 176, SCP-999, The Tickle Monster. Brit and Kiwo were carried away by the orange monster, soaring in the direction of the passage behind the metal door ahead, an area they had yet to explore. What awaited them there was a mystery. Yet, that hardly mattered anymore, because at this moment, neither of them knew what they would face next. Who could predict what the orange monster might do? It's over, it's about to fail again, ha! Brit sighed helplessly amid their rapid movement. He felt a pang of regret for not decisively putting on the mask earlier. He also regretted not wearing the ring. But now, with everything happening so fast, it was too late to change anything. Brit was lost in this emotional turmoil, and beside him, Kiwo was caught in the same state. While he was overwhelmed with despair, she was laughing, an odd contrast. Two conflicting emotions, depression and joy, simultaneously churned within her heart. Having lived such a life, Kiwo had never experienced anything quite like this. She swore she would never forget this strange, complicated feeling. The orange monster galloped onward, engulfing the two adults, Brit and Kiwo, as they moved almost as if they were flying. In this chaos, even if a few more people had been added, it seemed unlikely they could keep pace. Meanwhile, viewers watching the stream stared intently at the screen. Oh my god, where is it taking them? This guy is insanely strong. I feel like it's bringing them somewhere. It's so cute. I don't think it's a bad SCP, actually, it looks pretty friendly. 10 seconds slipped by unnoticed. Amid the violent shaking, Brit and Kiwo felt a slight dizziness creeping in. The orange monster's incredible speed blurred their view of the surroundings, only vague glimpses of office doors, passages with flashing lights, and indistinct shapes remained. Throughout the ride, the orange monster twisted and turned multiple times. It also displayed remarkable intelligence, smartly opening metal doors that blocked their way. Clearly, this was no ordinary creature. I'm completely lost. Brit muttered to himself amid the chaos. He had no idea where they were now, only that they remained within the office area. Held hostage by the orange monster, he wondered how long it would take to regain his freedom. Without that, there was no telling what the next step could be. Fortunately, the ordeal didn't last long. Soon, the orange monster halted and released them. Once free from its grasp, Brit and Kiwo's intense joy diminished considerably, though they still couldn't help but laugh, instinctively squatting down. Ha ha ha, ha ha ha. They laughed, tears streaming down their faces. Suddenly, a voice broke the moment. It was filled with surprise. Haha, are you here? Brit and Kiwo turned instinctively. Standing nearby was Vale, sitting on the ground, clutching his stomach, a broad smile plastered across his face. Blood stained the ground next to him. Hey! Damn, this is really annoying, ha ha ha. Vale chuckled, then grimaced as he complained. It took him a moment to recount what had happened. The orange monster had brought Vale here after kidnapping him. Then, it had left. Vale didn't initially understand its intentions, but shortly after, he learned from the chat that the orange monster was searching for others. He guessed it had brought them here, his intuition proved correct. Haha. Vale, you're here. Kiwo said with a smile. She shifted her body, trying to distance herself from the monster on the bridge. Brit did the same. Watching their reactions, the orange monster, which had been quietly observing, suddenly drooped its tentacles. Its appearance was tinged with sadness, if you could describe it that way. It really seems, no hostility. Vale said again. They all looked at the blood on the ground, a stark reminder of the danger they'd faced. Vale shook his head and said, that's a side effect of the enhancement. I don't think I can hold out much longer. I'm on the edge, ha ha ha. As Vale spoke, Brit and Kiwo's faces registered surprise. They looked at the orange monster, filled with curiosity and confusion. None of them had noticed it before, but over time, their fear of the orange monster had noticeably lessened. This shift was due to its behavior. Aside from the uncontainable joy, it hadn't harmed them or shown any real intent to attack. Maybe, perhaps. It's actually friendly. Brit said hesitantly, taking a deep breath. As they distanced themselves from the orange monster, the overwhelming sense of joy gradually subsided, reducing their fits of laughter. He surveyed the large, empty room around them. There were some file cabinets and other objects along the edges, but overall, it was vacant. Haha, have you looked at those cabinets? Brit asked Vale. Vale's face was pale, evidence that the side effects of his enhancement were worsening. He shook his head and said, damn. I'm too exhausted to move after coming here. Hehe, my stomach still hurts from laughing. Brit nodded sympathetically. His own stomach ached from laughter, but he found it bearable. After a brief rest, Vale was the first to regain his strength. He stood up, glancing at the still pitiful orange monster, which appeared to have been wronged. Shaking his head, Vale approached the file cabinet and carefully searched through its contents. Not long after, his expression froze as he pulled out a file from an open drawer, frowning slightly as he studied it. SCP-999 The Tickle Monster. Chapter 179, Chapter 177, Pure, Selfless Love. SCP-999, The Tickle Monster. The number at the top of this file marks the object being described. As Vale saw the number and the corresponding name, he froze unconsciously for a moment. The Tickle Monster? Damn, that's so weird. Vale muttered, a mix of surprise and curiosity in his voice. Not far away, Brit and Kiwo also noticed the file in Vale's hand. Brit's eyes sharpened with curiosity. Archives? Are there any clues? Brit asked, leaning in slightly. After a moment of hesitation, Brit's earlier cheer had faded into a more serious expression. Kiwo, equally curious, looked at Vale with wide, inquisitive eyes. Vale approached, holding the file, and the three of them examined it together. Before diving into its contents, Kiwo tilted her head, glancing at the orange creature nearby. With a hint of concern, she whispered, "It won't attack us, right?" Brit and Vale looked up simultaneously, their eyes falling on the orange monster. Brit pondered for a moment before replying. "It probably won't. If it wanted to attack, it would have done so long ago. It's probably harmless," he said thoughtfully. He paused, then added, "And considering it can make people laugh just by being touched, I doubt it has any dangerous side effects. Otherwise, our situation wouldn't be getting better, it might be worse." Vale, who had been quietly reading the file, finally spoke. "I think this might be the monster described in this document." He handed the file to Brit, and both of them turned their attention to the document, dismissing the orange creature for now. It still looked pitiful, not threatening in the slightest, and seemed at ease, not showing any signs of aggression. The risk appeared minimal. Brit and Kiwo examined the file carefully, their expressions gradually shifting from curiosity to surprise. SCP-999, The Tickle Monster. Object Class, Safe. Description: SCP-999 appears as a large, amorphous, gelatinous mass of translucent orange slime, weighing approximately 54 kilograms, 120 pounds. Its consistency resembles peanut butter. Its shape and size are highly malleable. At rest, SCP-999 forms a rounded, oblate dome roughly 2 meters wide and 1 meter tall. Its surface consists of a thin, transparent membrane, about 0.5 centimeters thick, similar to an animal cell membrane. This membrane is highly elastic, allowing SCP-999 to flatten parts of its body to as thin as 2 centimeters. The surface is hydrophobic but can absorb liquids at will. See Addendum SCP-999-A. The rest of SCP-999's interior is filled with a viscous orange substance of unknown chemical composition, capable of digesting organic materials with ease. Its temperament is best described as playful and dog-like. When approached, SCP-999 reacts with overwhelming elation, often slithering over to the nearest person, leaping onto them, and hugging with pseudopods while nuzzling their face with a third pseudopod. It emits high-pitched gurgling and cooing noises during these interactions. Its surface gives off a pleasant odor, which varies depending on the individual it interacts with. Scents such as chocolate, fresh laundry, bacon, roses, and Play-Doh trademark have been recorded. Simply touching SCP-999's surface induces an immediate mild euphoria, which intensifies the longer one stays in contact. This feeling persists long after separation. Its favorite activity is tickle wrestling, enveloping a person from neck to toes and tickling until asked to stop, though it doesn't always comply immediately. Despite potential injuries, SCP-999 has never intentionally harmed anyone. Instead, it typically backpedals, contracting into a quivering mound while gurgling, a sound reminiscent of a whimpering dog, seeming to apologize for accidental hurts. While SCP-999 interacts with everyone, it shows a particular interest in those who are unhappy or injured. People suffering from severe depression or PTSD, for example, report feeling significantly more optimistic after multiple encounters. Discussions are ongoing about the possibility of creating antidepressants from its slime. Beyond its playful nature, SCP-999 exhibits a love for all animals and humans alike. It refuses to eat meat and has risked its own life to save others, once leaping in front of a gunfire aimed at a person. Its intelligence remains a matter of debate, though its behavior appears infantile. It seems capable of understanding human speech and most modern technology, including firearms. Its diet consists exclusively of candy and sweets, especially M&M's trademark and Necco trademark wafers, consumed through a process similar to amoebic ingestion. The entire file's contents weren't very long, but it took Brit and Kiwo some time to read through the main section. When they finished, both displayed expressions of deep surprise and intrigue. Almost simultaneously, they looked up from the document and gazed at the orange creature nearby. At this moment, they confirmed that the creature before them matched the description of SCP-999. Judging by its appearance and behavior, it was hardly dangerous. Quite the opposite, it radiated friendliness, even risking itself to protect others. This was a pure act of selfless love. The idea that such a selfless, loving entity could exist within an SCP was almost unbelievable, yet here it was, reality. Brit felt a surge of emotion at this realization. However, what surprised him even more was an additional appendix attached to the file. It recorded some astonishing, almost unbelievable information. Chapter 180, Chapter 178, The Hard-to-Destroy Reptile and the Tickle Monster. After reading the file, they were filled with astonishment and disbelief. So far in the game, they had encountered many SCP secured by the Foundation. Some were eerie and terrifying, some were bloodthirsty and brutal, and some appeared cute on the surface but were actually extremely dangerous. Yet none of these SCPs had ever shown affection toward humans, but the orange-yellow creature called the Tickle Monster displayed exactly that trait. This was completely unprecedented. They were stunned by this revelation. And not just them, countless viewers on the stream were buzzing with curiosity about the strange creature. The message scrolled rapidly across the chat box. Holy crap! This thing's amazing! Never seen such a weird creature before. Tickle, that name's way too fitting. If this thing were real, it could cure depression. It's so cute. The group ignored the chat, as their focus remained on the main report in the file, though that shock was nothing compared to what came next. When they opened the file's appendix, their astonishment only deepened. Addendum SCP-999-A, reminder to all staff, SCP-999 is not to consume caffeinated soft drinks of any kind. Last week, someone gave SCP-999 a can of cola along with its usual breakfast. Not only was it literally bouncing off the walls for half an hour, the carbonation made SCP-999 visibly queasy afterwards, and it refused to move or eat the rest of the day. SCP-999 has thankfully recovered since, but the staff member in question has been reprimanded. Drive. Addendum SCP-999-B. The following is a report from an experiment in which SCP-682 is exposed to SCP-999 in the hopes that it will curb the creature's omnicidal rage. SCP-999 is released into SCP-682's containment area. SCP-999 immediately slithers towards SCP-682. 999, elated gurgles. 682, unintelligible groans, growling. What is that? SCP-999 moves in front of SCP-682, jumping up and down in a dog-like manner while calling out in a high-pitched squealing noise. 682, groans, disgusting. SCP-682 immediately steps on SCP-999, completely flattening SCP-999. Observers were about to abort the experiment when SCP-682 started talking again. 682, grunts, unintelligible, what is this? Low noise, similar to light chuckle, I feel good. SCP-999 can be seen crawling up from between SCP-682's toes, up along its side and around its neck, where it clings on and begins gently nuzzling with its pseudopod. A wide grin slowly spreads across SCP-682's face. 682, deep chuckling, feel, so, happy. Happy. Laughs, happy, happy. SCP-682 repeats the word happy for several minutes, laughing occasionally before escalating into non-stop laughter. As laughter continues, SCP-682 rolls around on its back, slamming its tail upon the floor with dangerous force. 682, bellowing laughter, stop. No tickling. Continues laughing. SCP-682 and SCP-999 continue the tickle fight until SCP-682 finally wears down and appears to fall asleep with what would appear to be a smile on its face. After 15 minutes with no activity, 2 D-Class personnel enter the room to retrieve SCP-999. When SCP-999 is removed, SCP-682 immediately wakes up and unleashes an unidentifiable wave of energy from its body, all the while laughing maniacally. All persons within the wave's range collapse into crippling fits of laughter, allowing SCP-682 to escape and slaughter all in its path. Meanwhile, SCP-999 quickly rescues as many persons as it can, taking them to a safe place to recover from SCP-682's laughter wave while agents suppress and recontain SCP-682. Despite the tragedy that SCP-682 had brought upon the facility, SCP-999 has not shown any fear towards the creature and in fact has made gestures suggesting it wants to play with SCP-682 again. SCP-682, however, has stated that feculent little unintelligible can data expunged and die. Memo from Drive: while the test was unsuccessful and ended in tragedy, that had to be the funniest thing I have ever seen. I never thought I'd see the day when I would regard SCP-682 as cute. Please send me a copy of the security tapes ASAP. After reading the appendix, Britt and his companions were speechless. My God, it can actually restrain that monster. Kiwo gasped, eyes wide. Vale clicked his tongue thoughtfully, as though he had stumbled upon a hidden truth. I've got a feeling, he said, that thing's the lizard's nemesis. Britt nodded. We've never seen SCP-682, but it's clearly a terrifying entity. To think the tickle monster could actually restrain it, that's incredible. He glanced back at the orange creature. The same went for Kiwo and Vale. Under their curious gazes, the tickle wiggled its tentacles happily. Whatever sadness it had shown earlier had vanished, replaced by pure excitement. According to the file, it can understand human speech, Kiwo whispered. Let's test it, Britt said gently. Hello there, can you understand us? The orange monster froze, staring straight at Britt. A few seconds later, it waved its tentacles again and let out a cheerful cluck sound. Seeing this, the trio's eyes widened in amazement. A strange, heartwarming feeling welled up inside them. Meanwhile, the viewers went wild upon seeing both the appendix and the tickle monster's adorable response. The chat flooded once more. Damn! It really understands. It's not just that, it can restrain the lizard. That's insane. I wanna see that scene, the tickle riding the lizard's neck, haha. We still haven't even seen the lizard for real yet. I'm so hyped for this. Let's go. So cute and it understands human speech. No way that terrifying lizard's scared of this. Unbelievable. Chapter 181, Chapter 179, Next Target. The chat in the stream did not stop for a single second. Everyone was captivated by the file. After all, it was the first SCP filled with love and kindness toward people, contrasting sharply with all the terrifying and bizarre ones they had seen before. It embodied a kind of selfless love that could sacrifice itself to save others, a truly moving presence. Moreover, its extraordinary ability to forcefully please people was equally astonishing. With this power, any sadness, pain, or negative emotion would be diluted and vanish entirely. It could be described as an unbeatable, ultimate psychiatrist, capable of curing all troubles. This kind of ability sparked a deep yearning in many viewers who faced personal troubles and pressures in reality. After all, who wouldn't desire a joyful mind free from worries? Even if real life is exhausting, as long as they held strength in their hearts, all difficulties could eventually be overcome. Yet, yearning remains just that, longing. They understood very well that no matter how magical something appeared, it was ultimately virtual. Still, despite this understanding, the viewers' love and admiration for the game only grew stronger. Having such a strange SCP like that was enough to reveal the intentions of the game creators. It proved that this game was truly incredible. Therefore, even though the group hadn't beaten the game yet, their anticipation for what lay ahead only intensified. It really understands us. Brit whispered softly as he looked at the tickle monster in the room. Kiwo and Vale also stared at the tickle. Their eyes brimmed with curiosity and amazement. None of them had ever seen such an adorable yet friendly SCP. "Oh, I didn't know what you were when I first saw you, so I was scared. Please don't be angry with me." Kiwo cautiously took 2 steps closer, gazing at the tickle monster with wide eyes, whispering softly. Compared to Kiwo, the tickle monster was enormous. It lacked distinct facial features, yet they could sense that it was looking at them, at the 3 of them at this very moment. The tickler emitted another excited sound, clearly in a very good mood. Brit felt a wave of relief upon seeing this. From now on, they no longer needed to worry about the tickle monster hurting them. Just a short while ago, some of them had feared that this session might end in failure once again. Tickle monster isn't so simple, just like that reptile, it's actually afraid of it. That's incredible. Vale said, admiration evident in his voice. Brit nodded in agreement. Clearly, he shared Vale's sentiment. The most shocking part wasn't the main body of the file itself, it was its appendix. Who would have thought that such a strange-looking creature, harmless, even cute, could scare off a terrifying monster? Who would believe it before seeing it with their own eyes? Yet, no matter how unbelievable it seemed, it was an undeniable fact. So far, they hadn't seen the true face of the reptile, but even a brief glimpse had been enough to shock them. At that moment, they all felt that the immortal lizard might be the most powerful SCP on site. But who would have expected that the supposed strongest SCP would face a nemesis like this? It was truly an unimaginable turn of events. All right, enough pondering. Let's focus on what we need to do next. Brit said, breaking the silence. Kiwo and Vale snapped out of their thoughts, turning their attention to planning their next move. Before proceeding, they reviewed what had happened earlier, first, arriving at the staff canteen with the coffee machine, and Brit obtaining the concept water. Then, as they prepared to leave, they encountered the old man, the shy guy, and other SCPs, including some zombified entities. At first, Brit hadn't paid much attention to it. But now, they understood that the pocket dimension of the old man was likely involved. According to the file, even if humans are infected with the zombie virus, transformation takes a long time. Yet, the rapid turn of events in the pocket dimension suggested something abnormal. It indicated that there might be more secrets hidden within that space, secrets only the players who entered could uncover. As for Plumbella, who had died, it was likely she was infected with the zombie virus. But due to the passage of time and the extent of her injuries, she hadn't transformed. This was actually a good thing, at least for the living members of the group, as it meant one less enemy. After navigating through a series of twists and turns, they finally emerged from danger. Now, they found themselves gathered here by the tickle monster. This place was definitely still within the office area, but their exact location remained unknown. Naturally, they planned to go out and continue exploring later. Hey, I wonder where the old man and that shy guy are now. I'm so afraid of running into them again. Kiwo sighed after some reflection. Brit and Vale also shook their heads. They couldn't guess where the old man or the other SCPs might be. As for the outcome of their last encounter, that was even more uncertain. Brit even suspected that, in the chaos at that moment, the plague doctor, who was eager to cure the plague, might have seen the shy guy face to face. If that happened, the plague doctor could have been drawn into the conflict. Of course, each of them had their own traits and uncertainties, none could predict what would happen in the end. Brit didn't dare make any definitive guesses. After some more thinking, Brit let out a sigh of relief and announced, "Anyway, we're about to set off. Our next goal is..." Chapter 182, Chapter 180, Mobile Task Force, Nine-Tailed Fox. After hours of gameplay, the clock in the real world has now struck midnight. Yet, the late hour does little to dampen the enthusiasm of the game's fans. Many are unable to play during the day, so they choose to indulge at night, either by gaming themselves or tuning into Twitch streams to watch their favorite streamers in action. Thanks to this, the number of viewers watching Brit and others has not waned, it has surged. The stream's popularity is almost ridiculous, the chat becomes denser with every passing second, flooding the screen with messages as the viewer count climbs higher and higher. Every moment, countless chats ripple across the interface, creating a relentless tapestry of noise. Despite the chaos, the players immersed in the game remain largely unfazed. As the gameplay deepens, they become increasingly absorbed, their focus narrowing until it feels as though they have truly transformed into D-class personnel of the Foundation, nervously navigating the escape routes of the facility. Electrical Center? Aha, I remember. Our next target is the Electrical Center. Kiwo said excitedly. They recalled the details from the strategy guide. Yes, the Electrical Center. Brit confirmed with a smile. They proceeded through the light containment area, then the heavy containment area, finally arriving at the office area. According to the guide, their task in the office area was straightforward but not without peril: locate the electrical center, shut down a specific control unit inside, then return to the heavy containment area to find SCP-079, the old AI. While simple in concept, executing this task is challenging. The office area is vast and complex, and no one can be certain whether lurking dangers hide within. Beyond the possible hazards, there are also threatening SCPs like the old man, the shy guy, and the plague doctor. Particularly daunting is the old man, whose pocket dimension appears to lead anywhere, at any time. Such unpredictability raises the difficulty bar, making the game all the more tense. Our next step is to figure out where we are now, then locate the electrical center and shut down that control unit, Brit said, taking a deep breath, shifting his position to steady himself, and confirming he was ready. Yes, let's move quickly. Hurry up. I don't think I can last much longer. Kiwo and Vale responded in unison, their voices tense with urgency. They scanned the room carefully, searching through the few facilities within. After confirming there was nothing else useful, they prepared to move out. The only exit was a metal door behind the tickle monster. Having already understood the nature of the tickle monster, they no longer feared it. Despite its odd appearance, perhaps unsettling at first glance, it now seemed almost cute. Knowing the truth had changed their perception, nothing about it felt truly frightening anymore. We need to find the electrical center. Will you come with us? Kiwo asked, curiosity evident in her voice. Brit and Vale also looked at the tickle monster with interest. Since the creature could understand human speech, they were eager to see how it would respond to this request. In response, the tickle monster waved its tentacles, wriggled its body, and moved toward the metal door, seemingly leading the way. Surprise flickered across their faces. Then, an uncontrollable sense of excitement surged within them. They exchanged silent glances, nodded, and followed the creature. Their confidence was rooted in the SCP file of the tickle monster, which described it as capable of understanding human language, a fact that had been proven before. If it could comprehend their questions, then perhaps it knew the location of the electrical center. Its behavior, leading them toward the door, suggested it was guiding them there. Though they didn't fully understand the brain mechanisms behind the tickle monster, they knew it was not cognitively impaired. Its ability to understand and communicate with humans, combined with its apparent affection for them, strongly implied that its actions were purposeful. It was leading the way. If it really helps, that would be fantastic. It could save us a lot of time, Brit murmured softly. Kiwo and Vale nodded in agreement. As SCPs like the tickle monster dwell within the facility, it's reasonable to assume it's familiar with the site, especially the office area. Since the electrical center is particularly elusive, it makes sense that this SCP would know its location. If it can lead them there, the entire mission becomes much easier. Excuse me, are you going to take us to the electrical center? Brit whispered again, confirming his suspicion. Hearing this, the tickle monster paused voluntarily. It waved its tentacles swiftly and pointed toward the metal door, emitting a faint crack sound. It must be. I think it's urging us to follow, Kiwo said, eyes sparkling with excitement. Brit nodded slightly. Yes, it really wants to lead the way. Vale remained silent, but the eager expression on his face betrayed his enthusiasm. Just as they felt a surge of hope, a loud noise shattered the moment. Immediately afterward, a clear voice echoed from the corner of the room. Attention all personnel. Mobile Task Force Nine-Tailed Fox is about to enter the facility. Chapter 183, Chapter 181, Exit Gate. Thank you. Night Tier, Fire_Fox 2590. For becoming a member on my Patreon. The Emperor Protect. The tickle monster wanted to lead them forward, and this instantly left the group stunned. One of their greatest obstacles in beating the game had always been the overwhelmingly large map. They barely understood any of its layout, which forced them to spend enormous time wandering, discovering clues, pushing through one danger after another, and hoping, eventually, to clear the final challenge. But just as the three prepared to leave with the tickle monster, something completely unexpected occurred. From a barely noticeable speaker tucked into the corner of the ceiling, a crackling, staticky voice abruptly echoed, "Attention all personnel. Mobile Task Force Nine-Tailed Fox is about to enter the facility." The announcement came out of nowhere, distorted, filled with noise, as if the signal itself was fighting to break through. The group froze mid-step, immediately lifting their heads toward the source of the sound as shock washed across their faces. Mobile Task Force? Nine-Tailed Fox? What is that? Kiwo was the first to voice the question. Brit and Vale exchanged confused looks and shook their heads. This was their first time hearing such an announcement. How could they possibly know what a nine-tailed fox unit was supposed to be? Still, though Brit was uncertain, a bold speculation surfaced in his mind. Maybe, this nine-tailed fox is one of the Foundation's special units, he said, frowning as he glanced toward Kiwo and Vale. Kiwo and Vale thought for a moment, then nodded. Yeah, that actually sounds possible. Is it some kind of elite force? Kiwo added. Brit shook his head, expression tightening. I don't know whether they're elite or not. What matters more is whether they'll see us as enemies. Vale and Kiwo stiffened at his words, a chill creeping into their hearts. That's right. Our identities in this game are D-class personnel, aren't they? Kiwo said bitterly. At the Foundation, D-class are basically guinea pigs. Her worries were justified. In the Foundation, D-class personnel were little more than disposable test subjects. Their lives held no weight, unless their deaths happened to produce valuable data. Vale grimaced. Great, so what, these nine-tailed fox guys might shoot us on sight. His frustration wasn't unreasonable. D-class individuals rarely survived encounters with task forces. If nine-tailed fox members spotted D-class wandering freely inside a secure facility, attacking first wasn't out of the question. Brit exhaled deeply. There's nothing we can do. Even if they attack, we have no choice. All we can hope is that our paths don't cross. Kiwo and Vale could only sigh in agreement. After a brief moment of hesitation, Brit steadied himself, voice firm. Let's go. Whatever happens, we'll do our best. The others nodded. The tickle monster waited patiently ahead, seemingly having understood the broadcast as well. Yet unlike the three humans, tense and uncertain, the creature didn't appear worried at all. Tickle, you're going to take us to the electrical center, right? Kiwo asked, stepping closer and curiously poking the creature's soft, slippery body. The instant her finger pressed in, joy surged through her chest, and she couldn't help but laugh. The tickle monster raised its tentacles joyfully, waving them with excitement as it let out continuous clack-clack sounds. Though it couldn't speak, its enthusiasm made the meaning clear. Yes. I'll definitely take you there. All right. Let's move, Brit said, determination burning stronger in his eyes. The three quickly checked their equipment and items one more time. Then Brit, Kiwo, Vale, and the orange slug-like creature stepped out into a brightly lit hallway lined with doors, none of which could be opened. The tickle monster led the way, Brit following close behind. Despite their attempts to stay composed, tension coiled in their hearts. The map was still almost entirely unfamiliar. Every step could lead to danger, or salvation. All they could do was hope they found the electrical center quickly and pushed through the objective before running into anything worse. Fortunately, their journey with the tickle monster didn't last long. Another metal door opened, revealing a large hall. At its far end stood an enormous steel gate, towering, sealed, and glowing faintly under the reddish lights. Under that eerie glow, the gate felt ominous, as though some terrible creature lurked behind it. But in reality, what hid beneath the metal was not a monster, it was the exit. Right above the gate, bold letters marked its function: exit, the passage leading out of the office block and into the final zone of the game. Whoa! This is the exit! Kiwo exclaimed, sprinting across the hall in excitement. She pressed her hands against the steel, looking it over eagerly. Brit and Vale followed quickly, their hearts swelling with relief. After everything they had endured, this door was the milestone they had been striving toward. Yet fate had other plans. They couldn't move on, not yet. Their remaining tasks held them back like an invisible chain. Why don't we at least try? Brit suggested. Receiving nods of agreement, he pulled out the keycard and slid it through the reader beside the gate. Beep. The steel gate shifted, opening just a crack, then slammed shut again. Chapter 184, Chapter 182, Find the Electrical Center. The exit door refused to open, sealed tight, immovable. Strangely enough, everyone had expected this outcome. Brit and the others showed no real shock at all. After all, every walkthrough and strategy guide warned them clearly, escape wasn't that simple. To clear the game, they needed to first push through the light containment area, then advance into the heavy containment area, complete tasks spread across the office block, and afterward return once more to the heavy containment area for additional objectives. Only after all of that whirlwind suffering could they come back to the office division, unlock the final gate, and finally ascend to the surface, the moment symbolizing true victory. Now, they found themselves deep in the office area, in the very thick of mission work. Their current objective: locate the electrical center and disable the main control systems. Yet the path ahead demanded constant caution. Every hallway, every turn, every drifting shadow might hide something lethal. The terrifying old man, the shy guy who vanished without a trace, and the bird-masked plague doctor could emerge at any second. Even zombified NPCs stalked the darkness, and countless other creatures waited unseen, hungry, patient. Fortunately, the tickle monster accompanied them, a bizarre companion, yet oddly brilliant. With it slithering ahead as a guide, finding the electrical center felt far more possible, almost reassuring in this nightmare labyrinth. Still, no matter how smooth the route appeared, none of them dared relax. This was Foundation breach, unpredictable, cruel, overflowing with dangers that didn't reveal themselves until teeth were already at your throat. And moments ago, the radio mentioned the nine-tailed fox mobile task force, identity unknown, intentions unclear. All signs pointed toward hostility, especially toward D-class personnel like them. In truth, their situation was anything but safe. Hidden threats lurked just beyond the thin veil of light, breathing from the unseen darkness. All right, move. Find the electrical center fast. Faster. We clear tasks, we clear the game. Brit exhaled sharply, sliding his keycard back into place as he stared at the cold steel door before them. His clearance level was high, but still insufficient. They needed that power hub active, otherwise, everything ended here. Okay, let's go. Kiwo cheered, full of energy and adrenaline. Beside her, Vale staggered, coughing blood, his complexion unnervingly pale. The backlash of his overclocked body was becoming impossible to restrain. Brit and Kiwo exchanged looks, concern heavy, helpless. They knew his condition well, but they lacked any means to ease it. All they could do was push forward faster, rushing toward victory so Vale could witness the triumphant moment himself. So the trio set out again without further debate, the tickle monster gliding ahead like a slimy lantern-bearer. 3 humans. 1 writhing slug-like creature. Together they journeyed through the office labyrinth, past cafeterias, corridors, and isolated workrooms. Portraits of forgotten staff stared at them from dull walls, while metal filing cabinets rusted in corners like silent tombs of knowledge. They searched every office thoroughly, rifling through documentation. Nothing useful surfaced, only old files, many describing creatures they had already encountered. One included the tickle monster dossier, proof that multiple duplicates of each file were scattered across the map like breadcrumbs of terror. They moved on quickly, time bleeding from them in steady drops. Even guided, progress was slow simply because curiosity, or caution, pushed them to enter rooms they passed. Every detour costs precious minutes. Yet overall, the exploration concluded far faster than expected. Their search time, though stretched by wandering, remained surprisingly short, far below what Brit and the others had feared. Satisfaction flickered across their tired faces. Then, at last, a glint of metal at the corner. There! The electrical center! Kiwo shouted, eyes bright as she sprinted to the reinforced door and threw her hands up in victory. Brit and Vale nearly burst with relief. Vale even slapped the tickle monster affectionately, then broke into laughter the moment its itching effect hit him back in playful retaliation. The tickle monster rippled with delight and wrapped him gently in tentacles, engaging in what could only be described as a tickle war. Kiwo and Brit couldn't help shaking their heads, smiling at the absurdity, relief mixing with disbelief. Without the tickle monster, they might still be wandering the halls endlessly. Though the creature slowed them when they stopped to explore rooms, it undeniably guided them true. Overall, the search time had been merciful. Remarkably so. They were grateful. All right, inside. Brit declared, pulling out his keycard again. Kiwo braced beside him, excitement bubbling. Vale and the tickle monster finally calmed, and the creature, shockingly, became still and obedient. Its tentacles waved faintly, communicating something like silently, "I'll behave. I won't cause trouble." Its restraint was unnatural, even eerie, like instinct pressed beneath loyalty. But seeing such gentle compliance astonished viewers in the Twitch platform chat. The tickle monster is so well behaved. Likes for our slimy king. That thing is adorable, help. Like a puppy. But wetter. The group shared the sentiment. The tickle monster felt like a small, shining miracle, a gentle beacon in this chaotic Foundation breach. It guided them, protected them, even carried them through terror. Gratitude filled their hearts like warmth in a frozen bunker. Okay, Brit murmured, palm pressed to the electrical center door, voice steady with new determination. Let's go in. Chapter 185, Chapter 183, Computer, Here We Come. Led by the tickle monster, the three of them successfully located the electrical center. They didn't hesitate for long. In just a moment, Brit swiped the keycard across the panel and pushed open the heavy metal door with a soft mechanical click. The group filed into the electrical center one by one. Inside, a narrow upward staircase greeted them. They climbed a short distance, boots echoing sharply against the metal, when Brit suddenly realized the tickle monster was no longer behind them. Kiwo and Vale quickly noticed it as well. The porcupine bolted back down the stairs, searching, but the corridor below was empty. The creature that had just been by their side had simply vanished, slipping into shadow without so much as a sound. Forget it. It's not human, its ways won't match ours, Brit muttered with a sigh. Fortunately, it's friendly. If it wasn't, things would be far worse. With that uneasy truth lingering in the air, the three pressed onward. At the top of the staircase, they turned left and were met with an overwhelming sight. Towering machines lined the room like slumbering giants, their inner workings rumbling with deep mechanical breath. The hum felt alive, like something ancient and restless. Brit led Vale and Kiwo through the maze of machinery. After a long search between metal shadows and shifting light, they finally discovered a control panel buried in the farthest corner of the room. A single switch stood at its center, the master control unit, its lever waiting to be pulled. The guide says shutting down this switch severs SCP-079's control over the exit gate, Brit explained with solemn clarity. Afterwards, we head back to the heavy containment area, locate SCP-079, negotiate with it, and only then can we return and escape. Kiwo and Vale exchanged firm glances, expressions sharpened by determination rather than fear. Taking a breath, Brit wrapped his fingers around the cold metal lever and pulled. Nothing changed visually, the room still hummed, the air still smelled of steel and electricity, and yet all three of them felt it, something in the facility's veins had shifted. Their mission here was complete. Great. Then our next objective is to return to heavy containment area and talk with that hyper-intelligent AI, right? Kiwo exclaimed, unable to contain her excitement. Brit nodded. Yes. Once we negotiate and access the gate, beating this game is only a few steps away. A good plan. A hopeful one. The guide further stated that SCP-079 had already seized control of the entire facility, locking the exit behind a digital wall. Why or how such dominance was achieved remained unknown, only fragments of the story were ever shared. The three weren't armed with knowledge, only objective. But that didn't matter now. Only one thing mattered, progress. Finishing this run meant earning precious early access to the new title. Everything else was noise. All right, let's move. We returned to the heavy containment area immediately. SCP-079 won't be hard to locate this time. We've crossed paths before, Brit assured them. Vale and Kiwo nodded eagerly, excitement glowing in their eyes like sparks. Without further delay, they departed the electrical center. The tickle monster was nowhere in sight, leaving them to navigate the halls alone. Their return path was a tangle of corridors, even with the help of enthusiastic viewers in the stream chat. Mapping the facility was slow and disorienting. Every turn was a calculated risk. They still remembered the threats lurking nearby, the old man who moves through walls, the shy guy, and the uncertain allegiance of the nine-tailed fox task force. The heavy containment area was vast, and survival was never guaranteed. After what felt like an eternity of tense scouting and close calls, they finally located the checkpoint gateway leading back into heavy containment. Kiwo let out a quiet but triumphant laugh. Hahaha, we're back. With steady hands, Brit slid the keycard and activated the checkpoint door. Stay alert, he warned. Heavy containment area is dangerous. There may be Foundation objects we still haven't encountered. The others nodded, gravity settling over them like a silent shadow. This was the furthest they had ever reached. Beating the game was within reach, almost tangible. If they remained cautious and luck leaned just slightly in their favor, this could be their victory. Let's hope we finish this soon, Kiwo whispered under her breath. Brit and Vale silently agreed. Together, they stepped through the reinforced metal gate and crossed once more into the zone of heavy containment. Though familiar, the atmosphere was no less tense. The deeper they ventured, the sharper their instincts became. Every sound mattered. Every flicker of light whispered a threat. They moved carefully, scanning for the containment chamber of SCP-079, gathering tools and useful items along the way. They passed Tesla coils, electrical nodes sparking with lethal precision, but this time, Brit navigated through with practiced ease. Other storage rooms held strange remnants and things best left unopened. Experience was their greatest weapon now. Progress was steady, until luck ran thin. A metal bear, one of the dreaded constructs forged by the Builder Bear, emerged ahead. Its frame was monstrous, chainsaw claws grinding with a hunger that felt almost conscious. They detected it just in time. With equipment, planning, and pure adrenaline, the trio narrowly escaped its murderous chase. No further horrors crossed their path after that. Soon, unbelievably soon, they stood once again before the chamber of SCP-079. Hahaha. Little computer, we're back. Kiwo declared triumphantly, hands on hips, laughter ringing like victory bells. The real confrontation was about to begin. Chapter 186, Chapter 184, The Body of SCP-079. Hahaha. Little computer, here we come. Kiwo stood tall, hands confidently planted on her hips as she laughed with bright excitement. Brit and Vale mirrored her enthusiasm, grins stretching wide across their faces. The three moved as if buoyed by momentum alone. After all, reaching this point meant one thing clearly: they were finally on the edge of beating the game, something almost unimaginable before now. No wonder they were thrilled, anyone would be. Let's move. Get inside. According to that guide, we should finally be able to enter this time. Brit snapped his fingers cheerfully as he spoke. Vale and Kiwo nodded firmly, hearts pounding with a sense of impending triumph. SCP-079 containment zone lay below them, accessed only by a shadowed, downward stairwell. They had been here once before, but that attempt failed. Their incomplete office sector objectives had barred them from the core containment chamber. That core was where SCP-079 waited. This time was different. They had finished the office mission, shut down the control unit, and disabled SCP-079's facility lockdown. Now, they could finally step inside and speak directly with the digital entity itself. What they would say, or how negotiation was even supposed to work, remained a total mystery. Yet their feet kept moving. They had come too far to retreat now, even if uncertainty hung thick around them. Just hope this ends well. Damn, I think my heart's about to give out. Vale muttered, pressing a hand to his chest. Brit and Kiwo exchanged worried glances, unable to help but share the tension. They continued downward, metallic steps clanging beneath their boots, until a heavy reinforced gate stood before them. Brit slid a keycard over the reader, and the doors parted. Inside stretched a vast hall, cold, empty, echoing. They turned right, walked down the corridor, and faced another enormous sealed gate, keycard access again. Brit inhaled, looked to Kiwo and Vale, ready. Neither spoke. They simply nodded, slow and powerful. All right. Opening it. Another swipe and a sharp beep, followed by grinding steel as massive doors pulled apart, much more smoothly than the first time. No mid-closing failure, no mechanical protest. The core began to reveal itself. All three held their breath, pulses climbing in rhythm with the widening crack of light. When the chamber finally stood visible, even they couldn't hide the astonishment frozen across their faces. The room beyond was stark, largely empty save for fencing at its center, enclosing a lonely table. On that table rested a single old computer, cables snaking around it like veins feeding a slumbering heart. "Is that SCP-079? Kiwo whispered, eyes wide. Vale and Brit stared silently. Something about the sight felt both unreal and quietly ominous. Viewers were filled with excitement as the camera displayed the machine. SCP-079's primary consciousness, according to archived files, was housed in that very box, an aging shell containing a hyper-intelligent program. Chat scrolled fast. Yo! It's really just a computer. Imagine this thing in real life, that'd be insane. I wanna see how the program behaves. Brit, go inside. The Foundation shouldn't attack outright, right? Their voices blurred beneath adrenaline. The three stepped forward slowly, unable to tear their eyes from the old monitor, and then it flickered to life. A distorted human-like face filled the screen, blurry, uncanny, wrong. You have arrived. The voice came from speakers in the chamber ceiling, low, flat, genderless in a way that made the skin crawl. SCP-079 did not need gender. It was thought. Code. Intelligence unbound by biology. Brit, Vale, and Kiwo instinctively glanced upward, as did countless viewers watching from the stream. Is it talking? Bro, what? No way. This AI feels alive. If it realizes it's inside a game, holy crap. Wouldn't that mean it exists? The shock only deepened. Vale swallowed hard. So, how the hell are we supposed to negotiate with this thing? Do we just reason with it? Kiwo frowned, thinking aloud, maybe we need to discuss escape conditions with it. Brit nodded, remembering fragments from the guide. That seems right, at least that's what it said. Before they could say more, the voice returned, slow, echoing, enter. The three exchanged one last look. Brit stepped forward first. Kiwo and Vale followed, nerves coiled tight as wire. Ahead stood a mind unmatched by anything in this digital world. Whether it would speak or devour peace with logic and cold calculation, no one knew. Please, let this go well, Brit whispered under his breath. And the meeting began. Chapter 187, Chapter 185, It Hates Humans. The group entered the room cautiously. The containment chamber was unexpectedly vast, its shape a perfect square. Cold fluorescent lights cast a sterile glow over metal walls that felt simultaneously sterile and oppressive, as if the room itself were holding its breath. Within the fenced-off section, an aging computer sat silently. Its dim, yellow-tinted screen displayed a set of portrait-like eyes that seemed eerily alive, following Brit's trio with unsettling focus, as though the machine was watching them, and judging. You must open the control unit, a voice suddenly echoed, as if the machine had been waiting silently for their approach. The moment they stepped before the wired cage, the voice issued forth, clear and commanding. They exchanged startled glances. Can it see us? Kiwo asked softly, her curiosity barely contained. Brit nodded, his face tightening with seriousness. It should. According to its design, it's extremely advanced, intelligent, almost human in a way. Beside him, Vale cleared his throat, stepping forward. He raised his voice, more confident, You told us to open something, what do you need the control unit for? The answer came instantly. A flat, mechanical voice with no gender discernible vibrated from the speaker, I need control. Short, decisive, more of a command than a request. The entire group, along with countless viewers watching through the stream, were stunned silent. So direct. Kiwo whispered, her eyes wide with a mixture of awe and unease. Brit's response was slow, measured with caution. It's self-aware. Its logic doesn't resemble human thought at all. Before he could finish, the machine cut in again. I need to be in control. The three exchanged uncertain glances. Kiwo lowered her voice, tentative, so, how do we negotiate? Vale shared her concern, eyes fixed on the screen. Brit thought for a moment, then finally said, our goal is to leave this facility. The core of our negotiation has to revolve around that. Kiwo and Vale nodded in agreement. Brit knew SCP-079 could hear every word, they probably already anticipated their intentions from the start. And then, as if confirming that suspicion. Are you trying to leave the site? The AI's voice was eerily calm, the expression on the screen unchanged, yet strangely chilling. Yes. We shut down the main electrical control unit. We came here to speak with you, Brit replied after a brief pause for thought. Kiwo and Vale stood silently on either side, tense but resolute. The negotiation had begun, and they had no idea where it would lead. But what happened next shook them more than the tense silence itself. Without hesitation, the AI responded, I know. Restore control for me. Then go to the exit gate. I will let you leave. All three froze. No bargaining, no resistance, no conflict, just an unnerving sense of ease. It was too smooth, too perfect. Brit's mind prickled with suspicion. It felt like a trap. Meanwhile, viewers flooded the chat with anxious excitement. Wait, that's simple. I thought it would argue forever. This has to be a setup. A smart one. Programs shouldn't trick people, right? Or maybe. Dude, this AI is insanely clever. Brit weighed every risk. There was no other choice. If the AI was telling the truth, they might walk out alive. If not, their fate was sealed. As Brit hesitated, Kiwo suddenly spoke, almost casually, right, do you know SCP-682? Her question was random, fueled by curiosity, recalling the file they'd once read. How 079 had once conversed with that enormous, nearly indestructible lizard. Records described those exchanges as if two kindred minds had met across eternity. Vale seized on her gamble, acting before nerves could catch up. We met it. It wants to talk to you again, said we're close enough to deliver its message. Brit and Kiwo froze, their shock visible. Even viewers erupted in frantic, laughing chatter. Bro, what? Vale's on friendly terms with 682. I'm dying, this trick won't work on Foundation objects lol. What a madlad. SCP-079 suddenly went silent. Vale looked at the others, guilt creeping into his voice. Brit and Kiwo stared back helplessly, they hadn't believed the lie would carry any weight. After all, SCP-079 was not human. Yet, the machine responded, much faster than expected, I want to see it again. Everyone blinked in disbelief. Vale stammered, we don't know where it is right now. Silence fell again, longer, heavier, until the computer's eyes flickered, retrieving memory file. Statement inconsistent. You lied. It hates humans. Chapter 188, Chapter 186, It's almost a virtual god. Retrieving memory file. The description does not match. You are lying. It hates humans. A cold, emotionless electronic voice echoed from the speakers, sharp and mechanical, carrying no trace of warmth. After hearing those words, Brit and the other two immediately felt a chill crawl up their spines, as if icy fingers had brushed against their nerves. I don't think this thing is easy to fool at all. It clearly has intelligence. What should we do now? Kiwo said with a bitter expression, subconsciously taking a half step backward, her body reacting faster than her thoughts. Vale was already breaking into a light sweat, fine beads forming on his forehead and sliding down his temples. Although the SCP in front of them appeared to be nothing more than a super-intelligent program on the surface, judging from the scattered clues and the chaos that had erupted throughout the entire site, it was impossible to ignore its influence. The disorder here was very likely connected to this entity in front of them. If that was the case, then this thing was absolutely not some harmless SCP. It could not be underestimated. And more importantly, if this so-called SCP were accidentally provoked, no one could predict what kind of unknown and terrifying consequences might follow. Thoughts raced wildly through their minds. The three of them stood frozen, staring nervously at the old computer. No one dared to look away even for a second, as if they were afraid that the decrepit machine might suddenly explode, or leap forward from the desk and attack someone in the next instant. However, the outcome they feared did not arrive. The avatar image on the old computer screen remained unchanged, motionless, and eerily calm. Then, after several seconds of silence, the indifferent electronic voice sounded once more, "You activate the control unit, and I will release you from this site." The topic had come full circle. For a brief moment, they were stunned. Then, almost at the same time, they let out a cautious breath of relief. They exchanged glances. Though no words were spoken, a tacit understanding had already formed between them. Obviously, to this superintelligence, the control rights of the facility were of extreme importance. It cared deeply about this. It was precisely because of that obsession that it had overlooked Vale's clumsy attempt at deception earlier. If they thought about it carefully, since the entity had previously interacted with that massive monster, it naturally understood the basic characteristics of its counterpart. It knew very well that the creature despised all living beings. Therefore, the situation Vale had described, peaceful communication, never existed to begin with. After all, the reptile would never calmly converse with humans. Which meant that Vale's so-called relationship building had been fundamentally flawed from the start. Most likely, the AI had already seen through Vale's lies the moment those words left his mouth. It simply hadn't bothered to expose him immediately. Additionally, because it truly cared about the reptile, it had previously said, "I want to meet it again." Ahem. Brit, what should we do next? Vale asked cautiously, his voice tinged with unease and embarrassment as he glanced toward Brit. Brit's thoughts churned rapidly. Confusion flickered across his face. In the end, he clenched his teeth and said, "Then let's do it this way. We'll activate the control unit." He turned to look at them seriously. "We don't have any other choice. If it really wants something from us, there's no reason for it to lie. Deceiving us gains it nothing." Vale and Kiwo considered his words carefully and found that they made sense. After all, in any scenario, there was no reason for SCP-079 to deceive them. They were merely a few D-class personnel, not employees of the Foundation itself. If it truly wanted to break free of its containment, then it had no reason to be hostile toward them. Its real enemies had always been the members of the Foundation. With that thought, Kiwo and Vale both nodded in agreement. "Then let's move. Quick decision, quick action. Let's go." The old computer inside the chamber clearly detected their voices. Once again, it spoke, "Do not worry. I will not lie. I do not wish to remain bound within this container." When they heard those words, they froze at almost the same moment. Slowly, their gazes returned to the old computer. This time, there was unmistakable vigilance in their eyes. The reason was simple: they had all nearly simultaneously recalled the contents of the SCP-079 file they had reviewed earlier. The file clearly stated that SCP-079 was eager to obtain a new container. In other words, it desperately wanted more memory, a more powerful computer. It possessed self-awareness. It could evolve endlessly. Given enough time and sufficient resources, it could grow into an unimaginable form of digital life. For a long time, it had been held by the Foundation, imprisoned within a limited and outdated container, a situation that left it resentful and deeply dissatisfied. Such restraint ran directly counter to its very nature of evolution. But now, due to unknown and unexpected causes, it had suddenly gained a rare opportunity to evolve. An opportunity so rare that it could not possibly be ignored. Naturally, it treasured this chance with extreme seriousness. That was why it cared so deeply about the choices Brit and the others were about to make, because it truly wanted them to help it seize control of the facility once again. Damn it! I don't know why, but the more I think about it, the more scary this thing feels, Vale whispered. On the surface, it's just a program, but in reality, it's dangerously powerful. Brit and Kiwo nodded almost simultaneously. Yes, Brit said slowly. Its evolutionary ability means it has nearly limitless growth potential. Fear and curiosity intertwined in his expression. If it were truly given enough time and enough resources, it might even be able to dominate the world, or at least the world of the Internet. By then, it could practically be called a virtual god. In any case, this program is terrifyingly strong, so strong that we can't fully comprehend it at all. Brit didn't bother to lower his voice. There was no need to hide anything. From the perspective of the game itself, the objective of these D-class personnel was only one thing: escape from this facility. And that objective did not conflict with the goal of SCP-079. In fact, they could even cooperate. As for the possible disaster that might be brought about if SCP-079 became stronger, that was not something they needed to consider. That responsibility belonged to the Foundation. And besides, this was just a game. Once the game is beaten, everything will be over. All right, Brit said firmly. We agree. We'll begin now. But I hope you will honor your promise. The Super AI responded almost instantly, I will not lie. You may proceed without concern. Chapter 189, Chapter 187, Nine-Tailed Fox Mobile Task Force. After a brief meeting, the group swiftly reached a consensus regarding their cooperation with the AI. The core understanding was that they would first return to the office area, activate the control unit, and then the AI would permit them to leave the site safely. The agreement itself was remarkably simple, neither side made any binding promises, because there was no real need for formal obligations. For the AI, regaining control of the site's facilities depended solely on Brit activating the control unit. Meanwhile, the group's only option to achieve their goal, completing the game, was to place their trust in the AI. Given these circumstances, neither side objected to the plan. Logically, both were expected to faithfully fulfill their part of the agreement. However, just as they moved to leave the room, the AI's voice echoed again through the loudspeaker, the Foundation's mobile task force has already entered the site facilities. You must avoid them during your actions. If you encounter them, there is a high probability they will eliminate you. The cold electronic voice delivered these words with chilling precision. The immediate effect was a freeze in their movements, followed by a deep, instinctive surge of anxiety. I knew it, the Nine-Tailed Fox Mobile Task Force wouldn't treat us kindly, Kiwo muttered bitterly, her voice trembling slightly. Vale's brow furrowed deeply as he lowered his voice in a tense, anxious tone, damn it. If we run into them head-on, what do we do if they just gun us down without warning? Brit's expression was equally grim, concern etched across his face. After a few seconds of thought, he finally said, let's not dwell on that now. We have no other choice. We can only take it one step at a time. He waved his hand and was the first to step out of the storage room containing the old computer. Whether we meet the Nine-Tailed Fox or not, we have to keep moving forward. We're as close as we've ever been to clearing the game. After Brit finished, Vale and Kiwo exchanged a brief, silent glance before following closely behind, their steps firm and determined. Yes, we're almost there. No matter how dangerous it gets, we have to face it head-on. Everyone, Let's move. If worst comes to worst, I'll hold them off while you escape, Brit declared. The three of them left the storage area, embarking on their return from the source location to the office area. Having traveled this route once before, they no longer wandered aimlessly like headless chickens. Though the path ahead was uncertain, they were at least confident in the direction they needed to take. As for the dangers lurking along the way, worry was futile. All they could do was press forward, one step at a time. Time seemed to stretch endlessly. In the real world, night deepened into darkness. Meanwhile, within the stream, viewers continued to surge in number, their chatter growing more lively and excited. Everyone sensed that the game was now within reach of a successful completion, and anticipation built for the next sequence. They yearned to witness the legendary moment firsthand. After this long journey of viewing, everyone had become utterly captivated by Containment Breach. The blend of mystery, terror, and the unknown was irresistibly tempting, pulling viewers in even deeper without their realizing it. All they could do was watch nervously, obsessively tracking every move Brit and the others made, terrified of missing even the tiniest detail. Meanwhile, the chat window exploded with frantic messages. "Damn, I can't wait. Clear it already, just finish it. Hahaha. We've come this far. Next, they just need to activate the control unit, and everyone will survive. God, please, let nothing go wrong at the last second. I love this game. I really hope the developers make more in this series, or even turn it into movies or something. I agree. The Foundation feels like an unprecedented super IP." Brit, Vale, and Kiwo moved quickly through the heavy containment area. After navigating the maze-like corridors for a while, they finally found the checkpoint leading directly to the office area. The journey wasn't long, but it was far from smooth. Along the way, they encountered the terrifying teddy bear builders' ear bears. Fortunately, their experience kicked in just in time, allowing them to make a swift retreat at the critical moment. Otherwise, they risked growing ears all over their bodies and eventually becoming part of the creature's main body. Beyond the ear bears, they also faced a wandering plague doctor. The same figure had appeared during the previous chaos outbreak in the office area and had vanished afterward. Seeing it again in the heavy containment area signaled it had finally returned to its territory. When they encountered Brit and the others, the plague doctor, nearly resigned, suddenly erupted into madness. It screamed wildly, obsessively insisting on curing them all. They had no intention of cooperating. Using their accumulated experience, they managed to break free from its pursuit. In fact, after escaping, they even felt the plague doctor was less terrifying than before. With enough caution, proper use of their items, and smart tactics, it wouldn't be a truly lethal threat. Of course, a smaller threat was no reason to lower their guard. After all, even a ship that sails safely can still capsize in a shallow ditch. Finally reaching the checkpoint, they all exhaled in relief. "Come on, we're really almost done," Brit said with a faint smile. Kiwo and Vale nodded eagerly, eyes shining with unstoppable anticipation for the imminent game clearance. But at that moment, Vale, who had been brimming with joy just seconds earlier, suddenly turned deathly pale. He spat out a mouthful of bright red blood, while a violent cramp racked his internal organs. Cough. Vale managed, blood spilling from his lips as his face turned ghostly white. "Damn it! I think I'm really going to die, it hurts so much." He gasped brokenly, pain evident in his voice. Brit and Kiwo stared at him, concern and shock written across their faces. After a few seconds, Vale weakly waved a hand and said with resigned indifference, "This was inevitable, don't overthink it, let's move." Just as Brit was about to speak, the heavy metal door of the checkpoint suddenly slid open with a harsh mechanical screech. What lay beyond the gate made their eyes widen in horror. Nine-tailed fox. Mobile Task Force. Chapter 190, Chapter 188, Rush against the Nine-tailed fox. After a series of frantic maneuvers, the group finally reached the checkpoint leading into the office area. But at that very moment, Vale was struck by a violent, stabbing surge of pain that tore through his internal organs. There was no doubt, his body had already pushed beyond its limits. The side effects caused by ultrafine processing were finally on the verge of a catastrophic, irreversible breakdown. Even if everything went perfectly from this point on, no further dangers encountered, Vale knew he wouldn't survive until the very end. Just as despair threatened to consume them, Brit was hit with another devastating blow. The bad news was clear, they had encountered the Foundation's mobile task force, Nine-Tailed Fox. Not long ago, SCP-079 had issued a warning. From that, they'd drawn a grim conclusion: if the Nine-Tailed Fox decided they were D-class personnel, their fate was sealed, immediate execution. From that moment, one certainty settled in their minds: in the next stage of this deadly game, they would face a new enemy. This wasn't an ordinary threat, it was a highly trained, elite force, intelligent, flawlessly coordinated, with overwhelming firepower. With anxiety pressing down on their chests, they reached the checkpoint once more. Though danger had stalked them at every turn, they had yet to encounter the Nine-Tailed Fox squad. This fleeting hope flickered within Britain: could they possibly avoid the Nine-Tailed Fox until the very end? Maybe, just maybe. Clinging to this fragile illusion, they prepared to move forward before Vale's body gave out completely. But just as they took a step, the metal gate ahead suddenly swung open on its own. The jarring movement startled everyone. Behind the door stood something even more terrifying: 5 heavily armed soldiers standing silently in perfect formation. Compared to the site security personnel they'd faced earlier, these soldiers radiated a far more advanced, lethal aura. Their gear was state-of-the-art, their stance cold and precise. The oppressive atmosphere they emanated was suffocating, so intense it felt as if the air itself had frozen, stealing every breath. Nine-Tailed Fox? Mobile Task Force? Brit forced out, voice trembling. Though the squad hadn't yet identified themselves, Brit's instincts told him, this was them. His fears were quickly confirmed when the front soldier spoke coldly: report. 3D class personnel were discovered. Request instructions for next action. His tone was as emotionless as the cold muzzle of his rifle. A bone-chilling cold shot up Brit's spine, from his feet to his skull. Their minds raced frantically, desperately searching for any chance of survival. But, exhausted all options, they faced the brutal truth: their odds of survival against 5 elite soldiers were terrifyingly slim, virtually non-existent. Yet, even with that knowledge, they dared not turn to run. Doing so would only invite instant death by gunfire. Even Vale, the superhuman among them, lacked confidence in outrunning or withstanding such a hail of bullets. Of course, Vale's processed body meant that even if hit, he wouldn't fall easily, yet the real threat wasn't a single bullet, but the sheer volume. No matter how formidable a warrior, unless bullets couldn't pierce him at all, he would eventually be shredded alive. At best, he might resist for a few seconds, maybe even take some enemies down with him. Seconds stretched endlessly beneath the cold barrels of guns, each feeling like an eternity. Finally, the front soldier spoke again, confirmed. Execute immediately. His voice was utterly detached, like a machine delivering a pre-programmed command. The moment those words left his mouth, the entire group and viewers watching the stream, stunned in terror. Kiwo's face drained of all color. Panic nearly shattered her sanity. Brit's head buzzed violently, as if his thoughts might explode. He was certain he'd be torn apart in the next instant. And then, Vale let out a furious roar: run! His voice thundered like heavy artillery at point-blank range, reverberating in their ears. The two froze in shock. Before they could react, Vale lunged forward, his massive frame shielding Brit and Kiwo entirely. Almost simultaneously, gunfire erupted, an instant storm of bullets pouring from the muzzles, nearly all slamming into Vale's body. The impact was immense, forcing him backward. Yet, thanks to his ultra-fine processing and monstrous strength, he held his ground, unyielding. Ugh! Ah! Vale's low, agonized growl echoed in Brit and Kiwo's ears. The metallic roar of gunfire sliced through their senses like a wake-up call, jolting them out of paralysis. Without hesitation, Brit yelled, "Run!" He grabbed Kiwo, still dazed, and sprinted with every ounce of strength they had. Vale remained rooted. Though he didn't turn to look, his sharpened senses caught the sound of their retreat. A twisted smile spread across his blood-stained face. Blood spilled from the corner of his mouth, his internal organs feeling as if they were being violently scraped by iron. He understood, at this moment, he had truly reached his absolute limit. "Come on!" Vale roared furiously. Gathering every shred of remaining power, he charged straight at the stunned nine-tailed fox squad. "Brit, you must clear the game." Chapter 191, Chapter 189, Sacrifice. The 5 nine-tailed fox operators opened fire the moment they received orders from their superiors. Bullets screamed from their muzzles, tearing through the air with deadly precision and ferocity. Brit and Kiwo reacted just a fraction too slowly, but Vale responded instantly. Without hesitation, he surged forward, positioning himself directly in front of Brit and Kiwo. Almost immediately, the bullets slammed into Vale, causing his already critical condition to worsen further. Brit and Kiwo snapped back to their senses in an instant. After a fleeting moment of consideration, they turned and fled decisively. They had no choice but to run. Ordinary people against fully armed, rigorously trained elite fighters were hopelessly outmatched. Staying behind would only make them useless and a burden, dragging Vale down with them. Under such dire circumstances, the only rational decision was to withdraw immediately and leave Vale to face the nine-tailed fox squad alone. Though this choice was unbearably cruel, Vale was still their teammate. If they hesitated, there was no other path but total annihilation. Brit and Kiwo ran desperately, disappearing from sight within moments. Vale, left behind, refused to give the nine-tailed fox squad a moment to recover. He twisted his body violently and charged forward in a blur of motion. His expression was ferocious, almost primal. Every muscle bulged explosively, veins standing out like twisted cables. Blood streamed freely from his wounds, the bullet holes were horrific, grotesque, impossible to ignore. Waves of agony crashed over him relentlessly. Yet, despite the overwhelming pain, he barely held his composure. But the nine-tailed fox squad was no ordinary force, they were elite fighters, with combat discipline rivaling the best specialized units humanity had to offer. After their initial shock, they recovered with astonishing speed. As Vale closed in, they fired again, perfectly coordinated. Dense streams of bullets surged toward him like a storm. Vale refused to dodge or retreat. Roaring fiercely, he charged straight through the barrage. His crimson eyes burned with madness, wild and unrestrained. Every emotion pushed to its limit, his latent power erupted fully, a power that surged through his limbs like a raging ocean. In that moment, Vale understood clearly, even if he survived this encounter with the elite fighters, death was imminent. The combined effects of his gunshot wounds and the backlash from overprocessing overwhelmed his body. His internal organs twisted, compressed, and deformed under the relentless pain that never ceased. "British, you absolutely must make it through!" Vale silently roared within his mind. Without hesitation, he hurled himself directly into the formation of the elite fighters. "Disperse," commanded the squad captain calmly. Despite Vale's beast-like ferocity, the captain showed no trace of fear. His demeanor remained ice-cold and composed. Every member of the squad displayed the same unwavering calm, proof of just how formidable this mobile task force truly was. Meanwhile, Brit and Kiwo sprinted at full speed. After some time, they suddenly remembered a crucial item, a processed gas mask. Once worn, it granted the user unlimited stamina. In other words, they could run endlessly without exhaustion. Within the game, This item was a miracle, a lifesaver in dangerous situations. Now was the perfect moment to use it. Hurriedly, Brit and Kiwo donned their masks and resumed their frantic dash, terrified of being overtaken by the elite soldiers. After running for some distance, they finally stopped. A wave of relief washed over them. Why? Because they were still within the heavy containment zone. They had fled blindly, yet hadn't encountered a single dangerous SCP. In such a lethal area, that could only be described as extraordinary luck. I wonder what happened to Vale, Kiwo sighed softly, turning back to glance anxiously in the direction they had come from. Thanks to the infinite stamina effect, she felt no physical exhaustion at all. Brit, standing beside her, let out a long, heavy sigh. It won't be good. Vale's condition was already critical from the backlash. Add those elite fighters on top of that, he's probably already out of the game. Their fears were confirmed by the chat. Viewers flooded the chat. Vale is gone. Vale got taken down by the soldiers, he's out of the game now. But those fighters didn't survive either. Vale was terrifying until the very end. Brit, go back. The checkpoint should be clear now. These nine-tailed fox units were probably just the first wave. More will likely arrive later. This game is way too brutal. Brit and Kiwo quickly noticed the flood of messages. Confirming Vale's exit from the game, they fell silent, sighing heavily once more. It's just the two of us now, Brit said with a bitter smile, shaking his head. Kiwo's expression was equally strained, loneliness flooding her heart. After a brief pause, they decided to head back toward the checkpoint. As the chat suggested, there was no guarantee that more task force members wouldn't arrive later. But they had no other choice, they had to move forward. Unfortunately, luck was no longer on their side. During their advance, they unexpectedly encountered the ferocious metal bear, SCP-1048, the monstrosity created by the containment entity known as the Builder Bear. Its entire body was forged from metal, and its destructive power was terrifying. Ordinary metal doors were meaningless before it. Brit and Kiwo sprinted wildly, gas masks in place. Although they ultimately escaped the metal bear, Kiwo was gravely wounded, blood pouring from her injuries. At this point, among the original 5, only Brit remained completely unscathed. Fortunately, the remaining stages of the game shouldn't be too difficult. As long as luck stayed on their side, victory was within reach. Chapter 192, Chapter 190, We will definitely beat the game. It had already taken an extraordinarily long time to reach this point in the game. Among the 5 members of their team, 3 had successively quit, leaving only Brit and Kiwo still standing. Kiwo was severely injured, blood soaking through her clothes as it continued to flow uncontrollably, her strength waning with each passing moment. Under such dire circumstances, it was clear that Kiwo couldn't hold on much longer. Yet, no matter how little time remained, she refused to give up. At the very least, she had to endure until her body could no longer bear the pain, until the final, inevitable collapse. The viewers, along with Brit himself, watched anxiously, their hearts pounding with concern over Kiwo's condition. But despite their collective worry, there was nothing they could do to help. And so, Brit and Kiwo pressed onward, heading toward the checkpoint. Because Kiwo was gravely wounded, even with the most basic treatment, her movements were painfully slow. During this ordeal, Kiwo repeatedly urged Brit to leave her behind and continue alone, but every single time, he firmly refused. The reason was simple: as long as her body could still move, the situation hadn't reached its absolute worst. As long as that was true, he could not abandon his teammate. Seeing Brit's unwavering resolve, Kiwo clenched her teeth and forced herself to keep moving forward. They trudged on for what felt like an eternity. Throughout the journey, both silently prayed that they wouldn't encounter any more danger. The game had already progressed so far, and they were so close to finishing. Failure now would bring unbearable regret and frustration. Not only did they feel this way, but the viewers watching the stream also held their breath, nerves stretched to the breaking point. Everyone was eager, almost desperate, to see the duo triumph and witness the final outcome. Perhaps it was the collective hope of the crowd that truly worked, because miraculously, they encountered no further threats along the way. At last, they reached the metal door outside the checkpoint, smoothly, without incident. The door was already open. With a glance inside, Brit and Kiwo saw the scene that awaited them, several blood-soaked corpses scattered across the ground. Judging by their uniforms, they belonged to the previous Nine-Tailed Fox Mobile Task Force. Among the bodies, one was especially mangled, the face blurred and distorted beyond recognition, impossible to tell who it once was. Yet, Brit and Kiwo knew instantly, that corpse was Vale. Vale. Kiwo's face was ghostly pale, fresh blood seeping from the hastily bandaged wound. Her expression was a mixture of pain, sorrow, and emotions too complex to articulate. Brit stood silently, gazing at the corpse with heavy, conflicted feelings. Over several games, Vale had almost always died in a miserable way, each time, to protect his teammates. Because of that, Brit felt an immense wave of admiration and gratitude toward Vale. Though he knew Vale wasn't truly dead, merely having quit the game, the sight of the scene was overwhelming. No one could remain unmoved, as if their calm had been shattered like still water rippling with emotion. Time seemed to slow. After a few seconds, Brit exhaled softly and whispered, "We will definitely beat." These words seemed directed at Vale, but also at the injured Kiwo standing beside him. Simultaneously, they felt like a message to the viewers watching the stream, and to the teammates who had already quit but still kept their eyes on the screen. As soon as Brit spoke, the chat exploded with fervor. "Come on, Brit! You'll definitely clear it! It's going to be completed! Keep going! Don't give up! This has to be done! It must be done!" Chapter 193, Chapter 191, The Role of the Foundation. I hope everyone had a great experience during the new year. Several members of the Nine-Tailed Fox Task Force perished at the checkpoint, and the Vale who was responsible for their deaths also did not survive. Strictly speaking, Vale's death was even more tragic than that of the soldiers. His appearance alone made viewers unable to look away, often breaking out in cold sweats. With Brit and Kiwo personally present on the scene, the visual impact was extraordinarily intense. While Kiwo grappled with feelings of confusion and sorrow, an overwhelming wave of nausea suddenly washed over her. This couldn't be real, there had never been a game capable of creating such a super-realistic image. The scene before her was so visceral that it could give even the most timid players nightmares. Although the viewers watched from the safety of their phones or computer screens, the terrifying realism of the game scene affected them no less than it did Kiwo and Brit. If they had been immersed in the game themselves. A flood of messages flooded the chat. Among the comments, apart from viewers wishing for their success, there were many expressions of shock and fear. These words seemed to carry genuine emotion through the screen. "My God, Vale looks so miserable. Damn, this kind of graphics is top-notch in the world. It's so realistic, I'm not even in the game, but I'm shaking all over. Scary. I just hope they get through this smoothly. No more encounters with the Nine-Tailed Fox Mobile Task Force." The viewers' chatter poured in endlessly, but the two players paid little attention. In previous streams, they had interacted enthusiastically with the audience, but this time, they were deeply immersed in the game's unfolding events. Many times, they even momentarily forgot about the chat altogether. This was peculiar, perhaps unnoticeable to them. The root cause lay in the excellent quality of the game. When a game is that well made, it naturally draws the players into its world more intensely. As a result, they focus more on the gameplay and less on engaging with the audience. Soon, they didn't hesitate any longer and prepared to set off again. But before leaving, both looked around once more, silently sighing in their hearts. Although it was just a game, they had experienced a feeling impossible to put into words. It was as if Vale's sacrifice symbolized some profound, cruel truth. A strange, indescribable sensation filled them. They still couldn't grasp the essence of this feeling, at least not yet. But they sensed that the mysterious organization behind this, the Foundation, might bear some unimaginably immense responsibility. While in the game's backdrop, the Foundation might seem terrifying, especially to the D-class personnel, given the hostility of strange SCPs and their organized task forces. For a broader perspective, the Foundation could actually be a force of great significance. They might wield some unimaginable influence over the normal world. Chapter 194, Chapter 192, Arrive at the Electrical Center. Here is another free chapter for you to enjoy. Brit and Kiwo finally set off, their steps heavy with trepidation. With a somber heart, they crossed the blood-stained checkpoint, each footfall echoing with uncertainty. Passing through the cold metal gate, they arrived at the boundary of the office area, its ominous silence pressing in around them. "I hope everything goes smoothly from here," Kiwo whispered, her lips trembling as she stood at the edge of the zone. Her face was pale, her eyes were darting nervously, and she was clearly reaching her limit. Brit glanced at her, a mixture of helplessness and concern flickering across his face. He hesitated for a few seconds, then responded softly, "We'll get through this. We have to. Let's keep moving." Kiwo forced a wry smile, grimacing as she struggled to compose herself. "Let's go, British." No matter her physical pain or how much her body begged her to stop, she clenched her jaw and pressed on. She knew she couldn't afford to give up, not now, not with viewers watching their every move. Giving in wasn't an option, perseverance was their only hope. Inside the office zone again, the two embarked on their search for the electrical center. Their mission was clear: locate the control unit, activate it to open the previously sealed gate, and escape through the exit. Last time, they couldn't leave because the AI controlled the base, but this time, they believed they had an advantage. They had reached an agreement. Once they powered up the control unit, it would grant them passage. Though deception was possible, they had no better plan. Thanks to prior experience and the support of their viewers, their search went more smoothly than expected. It didn't take long before they were fortunate enough to locate the center again. Throughout their journey, the threatening SCPs, like the old man and others they'd been worrying about, remained conspicuously absent. No sign of their usual foes. Even the hard-to-destroy reptile had vanished. Fortunately, it hadn't appeared. Apart from the dangerous SCPs, the friendly tickle monster was also nowhere to be seen, probably off playing alone somewhere, unbothered. Standing before the door of the electrical center, Brit looked back at Kiwo. "Can you hold on?" he asked gently. Kiwo coughed softly. Though weak, she shook her head with determination. "It's okay, I can hold on. But Brit, if I can't later, you must leave immediately, promise me." Brit remained silent, a tacit agreement passing between them. Finally, the duo stepped inside the electrical center. Everything looked the same as during their last visit, the room unaltered. Only the control unit had been turned off. Approaching it, they felt a wave of emotion, hope mixed with dread. "Open it, Brit," Kiwo whispered hoarsely, her voice strained. She was nearing her limit. Brit fixed his gaze on the control unit, took a deep breath, and, with unwavering resolve, reached out and activated it. Chapter 195, Chapter 193, Find the Exit Gate. The control unit was opened without resistance. Although the system was still powered on, the entire electrical center appeared untouched, as if nothing had changed at all. Yet, both of them vaguely seemed to hear the faint hum of electrical currents flowing through the lines, accompanied by the distant rumble of the exit door slowly opening. Of course, they knew this was merely an illusion, a beautiful, fleeting hope born from their desire to believe. Let's go. Now, SCP-079 should have regained control of this place. It should keep its promise and let us go. Brit spoke with a tremor of emotion in his voice. After all, reaching this point had not been easy for them. Kiwo coughed twice, the blood loss had left her head spinning, but she managed to hold herself together. Nodding firmly, she said, "Let's go." They turned and advanced toward the outside of the electrical center. At this moment, their task within the office area was essentially complete. The next step was to reach the surface of the containment site. Getting there was straightforward, simply through the exit gate of the office area. Previously, that gate had been controlled by the super-intelligent AI system, which meant that even with a level 5 keycard, they couldn't open it and escape. But now, everything was different. They had established a strategic cooperation with the AI, opening the control unit and helping it seize control of the base. Once it had taken over, it would let them go. Of course, if the AI malfunctioned or broke down, they'd be stuck, an outcome they desperately wanted to avoid. Still, they trusted it wouldn't fail, otherwise, they wouldn't know what to do. Leaving the electrical center, the two stepped onto the ground of the office area, their expressions firm and filled with determination. Why? Because, as outlined in the guide, the poster's ideas are only briefly introduced here. In the subsequent content, only a vague hint is given, with little to no detailed description. What awaits them beyond the surface is unknown. This uncertainty made their approach different from before. With no simple solution at hand, they could only proceed step by step, exploring the unknown as it came. There was no other choice, they just had to take it one step at a time. Yet, despite the looming danger, the two remained relatively calm. Although the sense of completing the game had faded, with the poster having already cleared it, the next challenge shouldn't be insurmountable. After all, if danger still lurked ahead, the poster wouldn't have continued writing the story. Time seemed to crawl by. As they made their way toward the exit gate, Brit and Kiwo mostly remained silent. But gradually, Kiwo's condition worsened, she was nearing her limit. "Brit, I might really not be able to hold on much longer," Kiwo whispered, her face ghostly pale as she trudged through the office. She felt herself slipping into a trance, her strength waning. Brit looked at her with concern. His mind was a tangled mess of thoughts, but in the end, he spoke softly, "It's okay. We're almost finished. The next step is just to find the exit gate." Kiwo clearly understood that Brit was trying to comfort her. But she was determined to push through until they beat the game. She pursed her lips and offered a faint smile, "We'll definitely make it." Not long after her words, the two reached a metal door. When they saw what lay behind it, they paused briefly. Then, almost simultaneously, they exchanged knowing smiles. "Finally, we found the exit." Indeed, in front of them was the exit in the office area. The metal gate gleamed with a cold, metallic sheen, sending a slight chill through the air. But their minds were ablaze with warmth, because reaching this point meant they had entered the final stage of the game. Chapter 196, Chapter 194, Happy Cooperation. In the office area, Brit and Kiwo stood in front of the open metal door, their hearts were surging. "We finally found the exit," Kiwo said excitedly, her originally pale face became a little more rosy because of the excitement. But Brit knew very well that it was just a flashback, Kiwo can't persist until the last moment. Her physical condition has become extremely bad. Kiwo herself also knows this. So, after noticing Brit's worried gaze, Kiwo forced a smile and said, "Let's go, Brit. It's agreed, if I can't hold on any more, you can leave." Brit sighed deeply, then nodded. Immediately afterwards, the two of them formally stepped through the metal gate. Behind the metal door is a hall. The red light and the sound of the siren made the two feel tense involuntarily. In the distance, directly in front of them, is the steel gate of the exit, and the two doors are very tightly closed as if nothing could shake them. The two went to the steel gate, looked up at the two majestic and tall metal gates, and unconsciously felt a sense of insignificance in their hearts. Brit took a deep breath and said, "The rest is up to us, but there shouldn't be any danger in the future. It won't be long before we finish." Kiwo nodded, and her body seemed to be a little lighter. The steel gate is very cold and tall, and looking at it gives people a very strong sense of pressure. The two didn't know what they would encounter after opening the door, but they also had no choice. And, besides, Brit is not sure if he can open the door. Because even though the AI has verbally promised them to let them go, whether the other party will temporarily change their minds and not let them leave, no one knows. Thinking of this, Brit couldn't help expressing his worries. "Say, what if we can't open the gate?" Kiwo is in a state of excitement. Hearing this, she was slightly taken aback. Then she frowned, and said in an uncertain tone, "You mean, cough? Are you saying that the AI didn't keep its word?" "Probably not." Brit shook his head solemnly. "Everything is not certain. There are too many variables in this game, and it is very likely that the method is only suitable for one person, because any small thing may affect the final result." Kiwo exhaled slightly, and her face looked a little paler. "Anyway, let's first try to see if we can open it." Kiwo's voice just fell. In the huge hall, the siren stopped suddenly, replaced by the indifferent electronic voice that they had heard before. "The authority has been obtained. You can leave. I have kept my promise." Brit and Kiwo, who were worrying, were slightly taken aback when they heard the words. Then, the faces of the two couldn't help showing their happy expressions. Brit looked up at the top of the hall and said loudly to the AI whose main body was in the heavy containment area, "We also fulfilled our promise." Kiwo smiled and nodded. And that indifferent voice rang again, but this time, it seemed to have a different feeling: happy cooperation. Chapter 197, Chapter 195, Surface Zone. Happy cooperation. The voice that was initially indifferent and devoid of emotion had now changed. It seemed to carry a faint hint of excitement. This change is understandable. After all, for an AI program, regaining control of the site facilities is an excellent development. Why is that? Because it can utilize the resources on the site to upgrade itself infinitely, unlimited upgrades, in essence. To what extent? It could level up to become the sole god of the virtual world. That is an unimaginable level, an environment beyond human prediction. At least, humans cannot conceive of what an AI capable of self-evolution might become after receiving sufficient resources. Such a level is probably terrifying beyond full comprehension, isn't it? A few seconds passed slowly, and the two let out sighs of relief almost simultaneously. The heavy burden in their hearts seemed to have completely fallen away at this moment. Brit lifted his head, gazed upward, and said excitedly, "Happy cooperation." These are heartfelt words. After all, for the two of them at this moment, their primary goal is to leave this site, and the AI program letting them go is naturally the best news they could receive. After Brit finished speaking, he turned to look at Kiwo, nodded slightly, and said, "Let's go. It should be fine." Kiwo also nodded happily. At this moment, both of them seemed to understand one thing: the self-evolving AI is not human. While humans might promise something and then backtrack, a super-intelligent program likely wouldn't. Of course, there are no absolutes. Relatively speaking, it might be more inclined to keep its promises. Nevertheless, none of these considerations truly mattered. Since they could already leave, whether the AI obeyed or not was no longer relevant. The two no longer hesitated. Brit took out the keycard and gently swiped it on the nearby card reader. All they heard was a soft beep, and the two steel gates that had been tightly closed gradually opened with a rumble. Earlier, when they approached the exit, they had tried to open the door. But at that time, because the AI controlled the site facilities, the exit door would close immediately once opened, preventing them from leaving. However, now that they had reached an agreement with the program, the steel door opened smoothly and showed no signs of closing again. This made the two incredibly excited. Even viewers in the stream celebrated. Hahaha! It's finally happening. I really feel they're close to finishing. Hurry up, hurry up. Finish soon. Come on, Brit. Come on, Kiwo. I'm really looking forward to what happens next. I wonder if there will be any surprises. Brit gazed excitedly at the fully opened steel gate ahead, behind which lay another vast hall. In the depths of that hall, there were still a pair of tall steel gates. Beside them, an elevator led somewhere unknown. Brit spoke softly, then looked at Kiwo with a worried expression. Can you still hold on? Kiwo's condition was even worse. But at this moment, she clenched her teeth and responded to Brit with a smile, yes. Let's go. Brit sighed lightly. Then, taking a deep breath, his expression grew more serious. Let's go. Everyone. We have to clear this game. Surface area. Here we come. Chapter 198, Chapter 196, Head to the surface. Let's go, everyone. This game must be finished. Surface zone. Here we come. Brit looked very serious and determined, as if he had made up his mind that this game had to be cleared. Kiwo was also affected by his emotions, and her overall state seemed to have improved slightly. Everyone. Ahem, we will definitely finish this. The viewers in the stream saw that the two were so confident, and their emotions were also stirred. Countless chat messages flooded in. Come on. I believe in you. Don't stop believing. Come on, you're the best. Encouraged invisibly by the chat, Brit and Kiwo's confidence grew significantly. Brit took another deep breath and stepped forward resolutely. Kiwo also inhaled deeply, suppressing the pain in her body a little, then followed behind Brit. The two walked into the hall in silence, approaching another pair of steel gates deep within. Brit looked up at the gate, his heart pounded quickly, and conflicted emotions of anxiety and resolve coexisted. But this time, he felt relatively calm. He quickly pulled out the key card, searching for the card reader to swipe it. To their surprise, they discovered that the card reader, which was supposed to be on one side of the gate, was now on both sides. Brit, holding the key card, was momentarily confused. Kiwo looked around, also at a loss. British, how do we get out? Kiwo said weakly. As she spoke, her body staggered slightly, nearly falling. Her injury had become quite serious. Brit looked at her and finally said helplessly, we may have to take the elevator. Kiwo glanced back at the elevator, forcibly suppressing her dizziness, and nodded. Brit pursed his lips, carefully adjusting the items he was carrying. Let's go. Let's take the elevator. Kiwo naturally had no objections. She was just worried about what dangers might await them next. As for herself, she didn't care much, she was sure she wouldn't make it to the very end. The two headed straight for the elevator. It looked similar to the one they had used before. Brit examined it carefully, then checked it with the navigator. After confirming there was no visible danger, he pressed the elevator button. Having come this far, he really didn't want to fail now. Kiwo shared the same thought, and the two waited silently for the elevator. Soon, the doors slid open, revealing the same interior as before. Yet, they didn't know where this elevator would take them. Let's go, Brit said softly. They entered almost without hesitation. Brit pressed the button, and the doors closed automatically. Soon, they felt a slight vibration beneath their feet, accompanied by the sound of the elevator operating. Silence filled the elevator, and time seemed to slow. Both of them looked forward with anticipation and apprehension, unsure of what they would see or whether they would encounter new and terrifying SCPs. But no matter what, Brit and Kiwo knew that when the elevator doors opened again, they would be one step closer to completing the game. And before long, the elevator reached its destination, opening automatically to reveal the next stage. Chapter 199, Chapter 197, Surface Dome. The elevator was ascending rapidly amidst the faint roar of its machinery. Yes, it was ascending. This was also a logical course of action. After all, their goal was the surface area. As the name suggests, the surface area is the uppermost surface. When they finally reached it, they should be very close to completing the game. It didn't take long for the elevator to arrive at its destination. However, due to their nervousness, both of them only perceived the elevator as moving very slowly. The uncertainty of what was to come next tormented them both. Fortunately, they didn't have to wait much longer. Finally, the elevator reached its stop. As they stepped out, it vibrated briefly, then the doors opened automatically. At that moment, the tension reached its peak. They felt their hearts pounding intensely. They didn't know what they would see, nor whether they could truly finish. The uncertainty about the future made them feel extremely uneasy. Fortunately, this torturous feeling didn't last long. Soon, the elevator door in front of Brit and the others opened smoothly. Once it opened, their nervousness eased significantly in an instant. What appeared before them was not some terrifying monster in a container, nor was it a hostile member of a mobile task force. Instead, it was an incomparably vast and luminous hall. The two of them instinctively stepped out of the elevator and stood in the hall. Looking around, they saw that it was a large building. The ceiling was a circular dome supported by numerous pillars. It seemed to be made of glass. Through the transparent surface, they could see the blue sky outside. The sky was clear, clouds drifted lazily, and the sun shone brightly. Judging from this scene, the surface area was actually quite pleasant. However, comfort was only an appearance. The real danger lay beneath the surface. Besides the glass dome, on the right side of the hall, there was a large open exit. Outside it, they could see the earth and sky, as well as distant mountains and rivers. It was evident that the base was constructed within a mountainous region. On the left, there was a metal door. They didn't know where it led. Brit hesitated for a moment before heading toward the metal door first. "Open the door." "Brit," Kiwo said, her voice trembling. She was nearly at her limit. Brit sighed helplessly and tried to press the button on the wall next to the metal door. But after waiting a few seconds, there was no response. It seemed this door wasn't meant for players to pass through, so they could only exit via the gate on the other side. Abandoning the metal door, Brit turned to look at the distant exit opposite. The bright light from the dome affected his vision. He squinted slightly, only able to vaguely see some figures outside the opening. "Let's go." Brit finally spoke after a moment of silence. No matter what lay outside the exit, since they had come this far, retreat was no longer an option. They had to keep going. After Brit finished, he waited for Kiwo's response. But after a few seconds, he realized he hadn't heard anything, which slightly startled him. Then, a wave of uncontrollable sadness suddenly surged within his heart. He turned his head toward where Kiwo had been and saw that she had already slumped to the ground at some point. She had lowered her head, appearing almost lifeless. Clearly, she couldn't hold on any longer. Chapter 200, Chapter 198, Walk Alone. They finally reached this point, but Kiwo couldn't hold on any longer. Just moments ago, Kiwo was barely able to speak to Brit, but in the blink of an eye, she was now sitting paralyzed on the ground, in a dying state. Brit felt a wave of sadness wash over him as he took in the scene before him. You know, when they first started, a team of 5 people participated in the game. But at this moment, only 2 remain, and one of them will soon also die. In a way, isn't this a heartbreaking reality? The feeling of watching teammates fall one after another, anyone witnessing this, I believe, would find it extremely distressing. Brit appeared somewhat gloomily. He stood still, quietly observing Kiwo as time seemed to pass slowly. Like him, the viewers watching the stream also felt heavy and sad because of Kiwo's condition. Many of them don't realize that they have almost unconsciously devoted themselves to the game. They will feel joy when the group successfully escapes the SCP pursuit, but also sadness when a member unexpectedly leaves the game. Such a deeply resonant experience with a game has never happened before. Yet, in this game, it happened to many people. This can be considered a very incredible and unprecedented situation. Time continued to pass. Brit sighed helplessly, squatted beside Kiwo, reached out, and gently patted her on the shoulder. "It's okay, go on. I'll finish this for us." Although Kiwo was not completely dead at that moment, she was already on the verge of death. Had she not held on, wanting to see the final moment, she might have been unable to endure any longer. This also demonstrates how exquisitely crafted the game is and how powerful the VR equipment must be, able to evoke such a realistic sensation of nearing death. Kiwo, in the game, sighed helplessly after hearing Brit's voice. Immediately afterward, she slightly opened her mouth, wanting to say something to Brit. But in the end, she couldn't produce any sound. She tried her best, nodded gently toward Brit, and then quit the game. After exiting, Kiwo's corpse completely lowered her head, her body falling to the ground. But at the last moment, Brit supported her and slowly laid her down. Looking at Kiwo's scarred corpse, Brit took a deep breath. Then he stood up again and looked back toward the distant exit. The sun shone through the dome, casting a glow over Brit. At this moment, his image more resembles a heroic soldier about to make a noble sacrifice. The viewers also began to recover from the shock of Kiwo quitting the game, posting messages such as, "Come on, Brit! Keep going! Brit, you can do it! God, please give him strength! Kiwo's gone too. Only Brit remains in the team of 5. The chat was rapid, filled with messages and numerous donations. But at this moment, Brit paid no attention to these, his focus was entirely on the game. Whether he could beat it or not was what mattered most to him. "Everyone, I'm the only one left. Let's go on, my friends," Brit said softly. He didn't look at the chat responses but resolutely walked toward the exit gate, the sun casting shadows behind him. But accidents often happen at the most unexpected moments. When Brit was halfway through the hall, a thick black substance suddenly appeared on the ground to the left of the exit, and almost simultaneously, a roar that seemed to shake the world came from a nearby direction. The entire hall suddenly began to shake. Chapter 201, Chapter 199, The Old Man and the Shy Guy. Brit walked toward the only exit of the surface hall like a soldier. Behind him, Kiwo was already lying on the ground. Out of the team of 5, only Brit remained. This meant that, regardless of what danger might come next, only Brit could face it, and Brit was prepared for this. He resolutely moved toward the exit, as bright lights enveloped his body, giving him a layer of brilliance in this moment. However, the accident happened after all. As Brit reached the middle of the hall, on the left side of the door ahead, a black, ink-like substance suddenly appeared on the ground, as if gushing out from beneath the surface. The instant he saw this pitch-black substance, both Brit and the viewers reacted immediately. In an instant, a word flashed through their minds: the old man. Yes, that viscous, black substance was the harbinger of the old man's arrival. Now that the game had progressed, almost everyone understood that this black, viscous substance was SCP-106, the symbol of the old man. As soon as it appeared, the goo followed. This had been verified many times before. Therefore, when the dark, viscous substance manifested, Brit and the viewers felt a click in their hearts. Shock and horror surged through them. But what came next was even more terrifying. It was around the same time as the appearance of the black goo. Suddenly, in an unknown place, a deafening noise erupted, as if the world itself had been shaken. After the roar, the hall where Brit stood began to tremble violently. Brit felt as if he was being shaken to the point of tinnitus almost instantly. At that moment, he felt as if his ears had lost all ability to hear. He fell uncontrollably, clutching his ears tightly. The pain radiated through his body and mind. Ah! Brit cried out in pain. Meanwhile, the viewers in the stream, almost simultaneously, instinctively covered their ears and chests. Although the ear-piercing roar wasn't quite loud enough to cause tinnitus, it was enough to make them feel ill. It was like watching a movie where characters suddenly scream at high decibels, uncomfortable for the ears and startling for the heart. Fortunately, the terrible roar was brief. After a few seconds, it gradually subsided and finally disappeared. However, Brit remained on the ground, panting heavily. The excruciating pain persisted, as if someone was shouting into his ears with a horn. Yet, he had no choice but to endure it. Although he carried some unique game items, he was currently unable to use them. A few more seconds passed. Brit slowly recovered from the assault of sound, breathing heavily. He opened his bloodshot eyes, staring at everything in front of him. After such a violent sonic attack, some tiny cracks had appeared throughout the hall, especially on the dome. These cracks were very subtle, seemingly having little effect on the overall structural integrity of the building. Brit struggled to get to his feet. As he was dazed, a sharp cry suddenly pierced his ears. This cry was different from the roar, it sounded more like an extremely sad, hysterical scream. It also seemed that, because of the previous roar, this scream sounded harsh but distant. While hearing it, the name of a certain SCP flashed in Brit's and the viewers' minds, SCP-096, Shy Guy. At that moment, Brit felt a tingling sensation. It had appeared again. Brit murmured in shock. His voice was so weak he could barely hear himself. After rising, he faced the direction of the exit, just turned away from the gate so he wouldn't see the source of the scream immediately. His vision was slightly blurry, possibly due to the shock. He slowly turned around. The exit door came into view, but at the same time, the figures of the old man and the Shy Guy also appeared before him. Chapter 202, Chapter 200, What are they dealing with? Sorry, everyone, for not uploading these past few days. I have been busy with my job, so my attention is focused elsewhere. After experiencing a terrible roar that could shake the entire hall building, Brit stood up. But then he heard a high-pitched cry, and he recognized the voice immediately. It came from SCP-096, the humanoid monster that goes berserk whenever its face is seen. Its nickname is Shy Guy. Its hostility mechanism has caused countless players to feel an uncontrollable, creepy sensation just by listening to it. It had appeared again. Brit murmured. Then he turned his head and saw that the Shy Guy was engaged in a fight with a nightmarish humanoid creature. That humanoid was none other than SCP-106, the old man, and the two had been fighting until this moment. The shock of the scene was almost impossible to describe in words. Brit saw that the skin of the Shy Guy had been severely corroded, with large areas exposing muscles and bones underneath. Even in the chest cavity, some organs were visible. Despite such serious injuries, the Shy Guy was not incapacitated, it was still roaring and attempting to catch the old man with a seriously injured arm. But how could the old man be so easily destroyed? If it could be killed that easily, the Foundation would probably have done so long ago, without the need for extensive containment measures. It was also because of its strength that, despite fighting the Shy Guy so far, the old man showed no signs of fatigue. Although injured, its appearance suggested that killing it would still be a long way off. The entire hall had returned to silence after the roar just now, all that remained was the mournful shriek of the Shy Guy. Compared to its cry, the old man's voice was much smaller and almost negligible. Brit stared blankly at the two of them fighting. Overwhelmed by astonishment, he didn't react immediately. However, after a moment, he quickly realized the gravity of the situation. "I can't look," he growled inwardly, then immediately lowered his head. "I didn't see it. I didn't see it. I didn't see it," Brit repeated in a panic. He wasn't sure if he had caught a glimpse of the shy guy's face during his viewing just now. If he had, it would be tantamount to provoking it. But considering the fight with the old man was ongoing, it probably didn't have the time or energy to hunt down another target. After all, Brit knew he was no match for the old man, and he couldn't face the shy guy head-on. He was just an ordinary person. If it decided to kill him, 9 out of 10, he would be dead instantly. "What do I do? What do I do? Wait, I still have the mask." Brit's eyes suddenly lit up, like a drowning man grabbing a straw at the last moment. He hurriedly searched for the item he was carrying. Super gas mask, keycard, etc. And just when Brit found the gas mask he was looking for, he suddenly heard another noise, the sound of a propeller spinning. Brit was stunned for a moment, then he instinctively looked up. Outside the dome, high in the sky, several armed helicopters whizzed past. What are they dealing with? Chapter 203, Chapter 201, Let's Go Again. Sorry, everyone, for not uploading these past few days. I have been busy with my job, so my attention is focused elsewhere. In the sky beyond the dome, several armed helicopters flew past, causing Brit to be stunned for a moment. The firepower of the gunship is extremely robust, so what is the purpose of their collective deployment? Who are they going to deal with? When this question came to Brit's mind, almost at the same time, the answer came to his mind, that roar. Judging from various indications, the roar that shook the hall before is likely to be the target of the gunship fleet. As for the source of that ominous roar, he had his own guess, which is SCP-682, the hard-to-destroy reptile. From every aspect, it should be the source of the roar. Even if someone told him that roars did not come from the same creature, he would not believe it. During the entire game, the one that left the deepest impression on him was SCP-682, which he caught a glimpse of. Brit feels that that guy is probably the most powerful entity in this facility. Of course, there are no absolutes. The shy guy, the old man, and other SCPs are obviously not weak, and each has its own strengths. But from the surface, the fright they bring is far less than that of the hard-to-destroy reptile. Seconds passed as Brit looked up at the outside of the dome and couldn't help swallowing a mouthful of saliva. The howl of the armed gunship fleet has gradually moved away, but it has not completely disappeared. Obviously, the target they are going to deal with is not too far from the dome hall. Brit didn't know where the target was, but he was very disturbed. After taking a deep breath, Brit quickly lowered his head and found a mask on his body. Then, he carefully thought about the situation he was facing now. First of all, the position he is in at the moment is the endgame area, the surface area. The only exit gate of this vaulted hall is right in front of him. So if he wants to beat the game, he must go through the exit door ahead. But next to the exit gate, there are two hostilities, the old man and the shy guy. They have been fighting, and so far, there are no winners. But he is sure that any one of these two entities in front of him is something that can easily tear him apart. Unless it is absolutely necessary, he does not want to have anything to do with these two. Besides the old man and the shy guy, Brit feels that there should be another scary entity outside, that is the hard-to-destroy reptile. If it is outside, Brit feels that the difficulties he will face next are likely to intensify several times again. But no matter how difficult it is, he has to move forward. It's impossible to turn around and go back after coming all the way here. After figuring this out, Brit also felt a little better. Moreover, until now, the shy guy has not turned his head to chase him, which meant that he should not have seen its face yet. This is great news, as this at least shows that he can continue and still have a chance. Let's move. Brit mutters in a low voice. Although he didn't watch the chat, he knew that there was definitely a lot of discussion at the moment. He believes that many are looking forward to the moment of ending the game. After Brit finished speaking, he didn't hesitate anymore. He took a quick step and walked towards the exit door of the dome hall. He is holding SCP-1499 in his hand, which can be used in emergencies, so that he can hide in a different dimension at any time to avoid fatal situations. Brit's eyes were fixed on the ground as he didn't dare to look casually. Because it is possible to see the shy guy face and trigger the attack mechanism. As he cautiously approached the exit gate, time was passing by slowly. And when Brit advanced a short distance, he heard a loud rumbling sound coming from a distance outside the hall. New chapter is coming soon. Write a review.